Yep. All right, everybody, good morning. Time to get started. Let's take your seats. Oh, you're within kicking distance. Yeah. And Scott, we got both of them up here. All right, take your seats. Conversation is great this morning. Looks like, don't get too close to the speakers. Yes, don't get too close to the speakers. Everybody have a good time last night? Well, that's not a very good time. Did y'all have a good time last night? How about yesterday? Nobody had fun yesterday? Come on. We need to get these people going. All right, good morning. Welcome to our second day of our Technical Training Summit. Excuse me, I lost my words right there. All right, we got some logistics like we had yesterday. I'm Karen Woodring. I will be your MC. How many new ones do we have out there today? New ones. New folks. How many new? Valdry? That's it? Hey.
So, if someone could give Valdry a microphone and have him stand up and introduce himself as the new guy.
You're the new guy.
Good morning. I'm new to the agency about 29 years. The name is Valdry Buford. I'm the Assistant Division Manager for AMA 20, which is the Training Services Support Division. I'm under Barbara King here at the Academy.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, a couple reminders for this morning. Your questions and feedback form, please fill them out. And the mentor form. Everybody wants to be a mentor, right? Yes. Help the rest of us. And fill out these forms, and in the inbox out on your welcome table, please put them there sometime before you leave. Okay, everybody's got your schedule. Everybody's got your packets again today, so you've got your schedule and everything you need. All right. Remember, this is live streamed, so watch what you say. Watch the cameras. We would like to ask you guys to put your technology away today. Your computers, please put them away so that you can watch the presentations. Any questions this morning on the logistics? Everybody remembers where the restrooms are, Valdry? Right out the door. I'll point you out. Valdry, okay, here's the restrooms.
Valdry, do you need a restroom pass?
Some places have them. I've been in FAA facilities where you get this big dog tag. Here's your restroom pass. Yes, I have. Okay, this morning we have Abby Smith, our director for technical training. She will get us rolling.
All right, let's try this again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Now you're cooking with gas. I love this. So, hey, sorry, Karen. So, who went to the Hawaiian billiard-themed, turned into just hanging out and enjoying each other's company near the bar last night? That was a hoot, wasn't it? I heard somebody was dancing. Okay, guilty. Yeah, me and Eddie, my new dance partner, that was fun. I mean, when Justin Timberlake plays, how can you not dance? I mean, really? Come on. So I thought yesterday was an awesome day. Did you all enjoy yourself? Okay, so we got more entailed today. And so I want to start with letting you know Jeff had an urgent change of plans, and he can't be here. So you just get me for the next 10 minutes. Sorry. Jeff is prettier, and he's got a lot more information, especially around tech ops. But you're just going to have to settle for me for the next 10 minutes. And I just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate the time that you take to fill out those little index cards with your feedback every 4 hours, because we've been making changes on the fly based on what you tell us. And it's also that feedback we are tabulating and we're going to use for next year's summits. We did that with the Air Traffic Summit, and you've benefited from the feedback that we got from a month ago. And so we're just going to keep building, because that's the theme of learning, right? It's also consistent with the values in our strategy and roadmap around iteration and collaboration. Your feedback, collaborating with us, helps us perpetually get better, because big change happens with little change. So on that note, one of the things that we talked about, remember the Dean and Tom show from yesterday? It's kind of like Tom and Jerry, only a little crazier. And how'd you guys end up at the same table again?
You would have to ask Christine.
Good grief, can you guys separate those two? All right, so one of the things that I heard overwhelmingly from the audience was the urgency of sharing if a seat becomes available. So this morning, pardon the reading glasses, because I have to read it, Diane brought me a course that has just been released and that starts on the 10th, which is mañana. So it's Eaton 9390, and it's the Uninterruptible Power Supply course, FAA 4017-8001 SO104511. Wednesday, August 10th to August 21st, and it's a day shift class. So we already called the logistics center and to see if anybody there can do it, but if any of you know somebody that actually can go at the drop of a hat and is in need of that course, I wanted to live into the values that we committed to yesterday with each other, okay? Also, there was a great suggestion that came in, and I'll just read it verbatim. If someone had their back to the screens today, let's make sure that they get to face the screen tomorrow. So are any of you that are sitting and anticipating getting a crick in your neck in the same situation you were in yesterday, please negotiate with your table mates. We can, and get in a more comfortable spot, because we don't want anyone to leave and need to go see the chiropractor because of the Tech Ops Training Summit, because that's no fun. I mean, sometimes it feels pretty good to get your neck cracked, but I don't want to be the cause of it. So does anyone need to alter seats? I mean, so Jeff's not coming, so if one of you that's in an origami position wants to move over there, similarly, so just make use of the tables. Okay. So another really good piece of feedback was, well, we heard that it was hot and cold in the room, and so Mohammed has been in, and so has Dustin, our colleagues with Marriott that are helping put on this production. And so I think the temperature feels pretty good in here right now. Is everybody comfortable? I mean, we have a large mammal count, and so I know that it's a little hard to maintain the temperature in the room, but I think we're pretty good right now. There was a suggestion of how do we sign up, and I think that that was a really good suggestion. And so Karen talked about the mentor sheets and said, well, do you want to be a mentor? You can also use those sheets, folks, to list the activities that you would be included as an SME. If you would just, and here's a little, I was raised by someone who was a English major in college, kind of like Christy. No, there's not, and I love you for it, and I'm really grateful that I have fairly decent grammar most of the time. But so, utilize is a word in English that means you use it for a purpose it's not intended for. So you utilize a shoe to drive a nail into the wall. So that's like, it makes me crazy when people say utilize, but let's utilize the mentor sheets to sign up for the things that you want to help with for SMEs. So everybody's got those in their folder. So indicate what you're interested in helping with, because the power of learning together is crowdsourcing together. And so let's utilize the mentor sheets to sign up as SMEs for activities that you want to be a part of.
Hey,
Does that
Abby.
work? Yeah.
Yep, sorry. And I just hate you. Isn't that rude? For an English major especially.
You hate me. I
So
lead.
we've already got some comments in this morning, people
Okay.
wanting to know how they can sign up in the virtual audience. to
Oh, that's
volunteer.
great. So they have, so for all of you out there in TV land or YouTube land, thanks for tuning in. And the way to sign up is use that text message that's scrolling across the YouTube bottom. Write your name, where you're from, and what you're interested in being included in. Real simple, because that's actually my iPad, and we're taking notes on it. It's this really cool app that any of you can use for free. I might as well just do a little infomercial for leveraging technology, but it's a really great way to include a lot of people when you're having a meeting. You know, especially if people are shy and don't want to raise their hand, they can text a question. Other questions, Christy? You can hey me again if you want to. Okay. There's a question about when are we going to hear about external training resources? I believe Elizabeth is going to talk about alternative ways of expanding the training experience. I know Scott Williams and other people have been actively involved, and Bill Gillespie, in getting other resources. And so I think there's going to be some discussion about that later today. There's a question about if Appendix 5 goes into ELMS, can we see how it will work? And I think that that's a given. And I know Pat and Jim briefly mentioned the fact that they're going to start doing some webinar series. And I think there's some focus groups, and I know there was a lot of energy about, hey, I've got some ideas on how we might do that integration and what does the workflow needs to be. And so that would be a really good group to sign up for, utilizing the mentor sheet to do so. So that we get the people that have the passion and interest involved in the things that they're passionate about. So you're going to have to forgive me because I can't even begin to understand what this means. So someone's going to, if they want to be brave and provide a clarification, that'd be great. Military crosswalk is out of date. Can we update it? I would like to buy a vowel, please. Dean, of course.
Dean LeGrand, Washington District, PSS. I didn't write that comment, but I can help you understand it. In FIST, there's a crosswalk for military training to get equivalencies for other courses. It's that simple.
Okay, and so it sounds like something that needs to be part of a work group. So I would like for the person that made that question to sign up to help with that crosswalk for equivalencies. That sounds like good work that somebody with passion and ideas would like to be involved in. Okay? What systems do you think we need? I think that's a really good question, and I think if you ask me, you're going to get bad information because that's not what I'm going to be good at. And so that for the person that suggested that, so Chuck, Dan, how do you want to handle that question? It was a question of what systems do you think we need? Is that a question that we need to do in partnership with Tech Ops? It kind of sounds that way. You got to use the microphone, dear. You're holding it.
Sorry. It's a Tech Ops.
I love Dana Broach. Hey, Dana, you're presenting this morning, bro.
That was Brad Clark. Charles Stimley, Technical Training Tech Ops. What was the question?
The question was, what system do you think we need?
That will be done in conjunction with Jim Mayer and probably some LMRP things, LMRP input.
What's that stand for?
Lean maintenance
Thank you.
and revalidation program, which is Don Taylor. But that will be an ongoing project.
Okay, so if people want to make suggestions or seek clarification, james.mayer@faa.gov, or who was the other person?
Donald Taylor.
And that's his email?
Donald.taylor@faa.gov.
Thank you. Okay. Are we documenting the good ideas and discussions? Yes, we have our lovely documentarian stand-up, Celeste, in the back. Yay, Celeste. She's our minute woman. And so we're taking action items, good ideas, and so we build a living record of this event so it's not one and done. All right. We heard there wasn't enough time for lunch. Sorry, it's 60 minutes. FAA lunch by regulation is actually 30. Sorry. That's why we extended the show out to 5 o'clock, because we need to account for work time. Presentations could be too long or too short. I think that some of that is just personal preference. I appreciate that, and we'll take the feedback. If anybody that's making suggestions wants to talk to us privately for more candid feedback, we welcome it. I heard someone's cell phone go off, so just as a reminder, can you put them on silent mode or zap so as to not disturb people? We got feedback about the directions for how to lead discussions weren't real clear. So for this morning, this afternoon, for our speakers, let's just make sure if we need to rally and get help with making sure that the table group discussions and purpose are clear, that'd be super. And with that, let's get this party started. Let's go for another great day. Oh my gosh. Who are you and where are you from? And you're still wearing your bling from the party last night. Donna. No, it's Donna. I'm not going to make Donna from Nashua. So she's still partying. You got to love the spirit. Okay, Karen, let's roll. Let's roll. Let's go. Come on, everybody. Let's get a round of applause going. Let's get the party started. Joy, you're up in front, sweetie. Right here.
Right up here, Joy. Right up front. Center table. At least you're on the back side, though. All right. This morning, our first presentation is near and dear to my heart, being the Common Principles course. Of course, everybody's first course when they come here. I was the lead developer on that course and instructor. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Dana Broach. I guess he gets emails to Mrs. Broach.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Still get?
Still get them?
Yeah.
All right. He's from the Civil Aerospace Medical Institute, CAMI. All right, all yours.
Well, good morning, Abby's. That is not something I normally get when I do presentations. Mostly it's. Yeah, I so often I get scheduled at conferences and it's like the last session of the last day of the conference and everybody's gone to Disney World. So I'm here to talk about some work we did for Tech Ops, and it indirectly affects training as well, and that's a job analysis and a look at common principles. And now if I can figure out the clicker. There we go. A number of years ago, I was in a meeting with Vaughn Turner and Mike McCormick. They were talking about the problem in Tech Ops and hiring people, and that's something I've been off and on associated with for about 15, 17 years out of my 28 years with the agency. They wanted to use common principles as a screen, essentially, and to attach job jeopardy to it. I knew about common principles when I joined the agency in '89. I got called over to do a little consultation with them. Knew sort of about the course, didn't know the real history on it. I said, well, that's fine. You could certainly do that. There's some hoops you got to jump through to meet agency policy and other considerations like the lawyers. And one of those is, let's got to establish the validity of it. And they said, okay, what do we do? And I said, well, the first step is a job analysis. Always is in my world. I'm kind of a weird person. I like job analysis. It's kind of the Rodney Dangerfield of industrial psychology. It doesn't get any respect. It's boring. I will tell you that. I see somebody back there cheering on because for ISD, for instruction, job analysis is a critical step. But mine is a selection-oriented, so it informs training, but there's a little bit different focus. So I said the first thing we got to do is a job analysis, And then what we do is compare the content of common principles to the knowledge and skills that have been identified as essential to the performance of critical and/or important job tasks and duties. I've highlighted essential here because that's a legal terminology thing that we've got to satisfy. And that means that they can't do the work without having that knowledge or that skill. They cannot perform it under any circumstance if they don't have that knowledge and skill. Essential. Another one of those grammar things. So we started this work, back, Laura, 2014, actually, and really got rolling in 2015 because of budget issues, but that's a whole nother story. Just real quickly, and I want to keep this, there can be a lot of questions, I suspect, later on. The way we went about this is we had SME groups, and TechOps fielded 3 panels of up to 12 people each who came in, and basically we extracted everything out of their head over 3 days. Built a job analysis survey, which we emailed, or we invited all incumbent non-supervisory 2101s at SSCs, about 4,382 people, about. We got back well over 1,600 responses that we could use, which in the job analysis world is a major cause for cheering. That's like a 40% return rate. Usually if we get 10%, we're jumping with joy. I don't know why, but TechOps people like to talk about their work for some reason. Compare that with air traffic, where they did a job analysis survey about the same time, and they got about an 8% response rate. Of course, it's a much bigger workforce. Interestingly enough, and this is just some of the high-level results, it really came out kind of confirming common sense. Gee, there's some important things that TechOps do, like preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, planning maintenance, and then the stuff they have to do, like administrative and other duties as assigned. So it came out very clear, there's 2 really classes of duties. And fortunately, from my perspective, as somebody who flies fairly often, I'm glad that corrective and preventive maintenance were very high on the list. We identified 75 critical tasks. We had 176 work statements, which is quite a few. There's a lot to this job. And when you dig into some of the details of actually doing the maintenance, it gets even more complicated. And we identified 87 important KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Now, when we say validate in personnel selection, I need to give a little bit of an explanation there. In the training world, validate is, does the course work? So you run it, and can you trace it to job objectives and things like that. Validation in my world, there's a quote I have about it used to be a priestly ritual presided over in secret by these learned people. Now it combines the spectacle of mud wrestling with legal shenanigans. It's a contentious subject. It means showing through logical and empirical means that what you're doing is rational, reasonable, and job related. And those are the touchstones. It's reasonable, rational, and job related. What we found when we finally, and we have one of my victims out here, Casey, where are you? There you are. He was one of the folks who helped me walk through the content versus the job analysis. And we found that 3 of the modules line up pretty closely with the job requirements. The math refresher, the basic electronics, and troubleshooting, which was an interesting thing, lines up very closely with job. Now, what we also found is that antennas and transmission lines and networking don't align all that well with the occupational profile of this job, with what we found in the job analysis. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We can talk about it because it's an interesting point. Nice thing about the troubleshooting module, it makes sense because it encompasses a lot more of the essential knowledge and skill in application. So it requires integration of knowledge and skills in order to do the troubleshooting. Now, antennas and transmission lines may reflect specific requirements at particular locations, but not as an occupation as a whole. I'm making a distinction here that's important between an occupation, a job overall, 2101, versus the requirements of a particular position at a specific SSC. And there is a distinction. We're hiring, and since this was going to be talking about making decisions for the occupation, that's the level of analysis that we're working at, not at the requirements of a particular position at a specific SSC with a particular FSET profile. The other thing about the job analysis, we were focused on what's required to do the work, not necessarily what's required to learn the work. And there may be some differences, but in the courts and things like that, what they care about, what's required to do the work. So that's what we focused on. One of the big questions that we have not answered, I'm supposed to answer by September 30th, and Laura's nodding at me, is are there differences by discipline? So if you look at, comm versus environmental, or automation versus surveillance, what are the differences in the KSA profiles? That's actually a very hard analysis that we're working on. So which ones are in common? Is there a common core across all the specialties? I'm not going to tip my hand yet because we're still wading through the data, but the reasonable hypothesis is yes, there are some elements that are core across all 5 disciplines or specialties, and that there are probably some that are unique as well. So what are the products you get out of this? Well, you get a very boring report. Laura can tell you. It's a great sleep aid. We get the data themselves, which we will share with PASS. That's part of the agreement. That's at aggregated averages, standard deviations, that kind of thing. All the statistical data will be on a CD. Then several technical reports. We've got one report already in review and revision cycle for the overall job analysis report. This will be published as an OAM technical report, be publicly available, made available to anybody who wants to read it. Glad to distribute it widely. We're also going to be looking at the differences by specialty, and then also the content validity report, which is a legal requirement. Now, how could these data be used? They've got a lot of different applications beyond making the decision about whether to attach job jeopardy to common principles or not. It can be used to rewrite and standardize the JATS, the job analysis tools, which personally, I hate those things. They're sloppy across the system. I've dealt with a number of occupations now, and they're cleaning them up. They've already done the G-band, and is F-band done? Working on it. Yeah, so they'll be more or less standardized across all the SSCs. And there may be some tailoring required for a particular position, but that's a Laura problem. You're welcome. The other thing that the data can be used for is identifying what I call other than technical skills, or other than technical knowledge and skills. There's things like conscientiousness, trustworthiness, comprehension of written English, which actually came out the #1 ability required of a 2101 in the field. Being able to read stuff and understand it. The #2 was being able to speak, to communicate orally, which was, I didn't expect that, quite honestly. But being able to read and speak English in a way that people can understand you came out very important to the job. But other things, the kind of good employee stuff, is it going to show up on time? Is she going to be a good team member? Those kinds of other than technical abilities show up in the job analysis. In fact, we've got a workshop September 11th in headquarters to crosswalk the new behavioral interview with the results of the job analysis, because the interview is in part focused on these other than technical knowledge and skills and abilities. So you could certainly use the data to make revisions to common principles if you wanted to. My personal favorite, we could use this to identify the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we should test before we hire somebody to and verify that they, in fact, know what DC stands for, and it didn't DC Comics. That's a whole nother set of issues we can talk about. Revisions to the 2101 crediting plan is another application. It's got other applications. That's something I might ask you to think about. If you've got this robust job analysis information, what else could you use it for? What could you do with it, particularly at the SSC level? Would you access those data? How might you do it? I think some of the different work groups could use the information. How do we tie it to things like Appendix 5? Could we? I don't know. Those are some creative things to think about. There's some follow-on questions that we'd like to ask. And a lot of it has to do with what's going to be the impact of NextGen. We tried to look at this previously out of the Human Factors program. Because of the way the funding works, I'm funded out of the research, engineering, and development part of the appropriation for FAA. that puts certain restrictions on what we can do. So when we start taking a look at NextGen, it was a contractor, they were focused on the acquisition programs in NextGen only. So they were looking at boxes. But so much of what is happening in tech ops is internally driven through your new, the strategy that the group has outlined. And it's not funded by NextGen. It's funded out of ops. Maybe a little F&E money, but it's coming out of ops. So the contractor could not look at that side of the equation. Well, there's a different way we've come up with to try and address this, but there's a real change coming to tech ops, it looks like, with the focus on reliability-centered maintenance, predictive maintenance, those kinds of things. How's that going to change the work that the folks do out at the SSCs? We need to get a handle on that. One of the big things, and we're working with NASAO on that, is, the NAS is becoming a network, an Internet of Things. It's all connected. And boy, one problem here will propagate us across the system in weird and strange ways, cascading failures. NASAO has a wonderful animation where it starts off a little donut hole in one place, and then it's a circle of darkness just expands across the country. Now, they restore services right behind it, but it's just amazing to watch this ripple across the NAS. So how's that going to change the job? Is it going to become more important? Are they going to have to deal with more of those issues? Now, it used to be you could go out and service a VOR and it didn't talk to anything else. Now it's talking to everything else. So how's that going to change the job? Over what time frame? What kind of knowledge and skills do people need if we're going to be asking them to do that work? How much do we train? How much do we buy? Could we restructure common principles to more closely align with the job analysis? In fact, I think there's some work along those lines. And Elizabeth and mine's presentation kind of dovetail along that. Could we tailor it to the requirements of a particular position at a particular SSC? Could we design a training system that's flexible enough to reflect the requirements for the position that you're trying to hire for? I don't know. Why or why not? How could we do that? And then again, my favorite, pre-hire assessments. They say they're an expert in radar. Well, let's see if they really are an expert. Another thing that goes with that is when to update this. There's a tendency to do a job analysis and leave it sit. I personally believe you need to go back every 3 to 5 years at least and revisit and look at this. Hopefully we'll get funding to do that. Just a real quick snapshot, shifting gears a little bit. How do we get our research requirements? I mean, this has been driven by the concept of operations, the workforce strategy, which we're going to be updating, I think. Helped write some of that. It's also informed by the workforce of the future folks and by the training strategy, and it helps identify requirements because we only do what's called requirements-driven research. But looking out ahead where we kind of want to go, what we think needs to be done. And this is a dialogue with you all and with Abby and with Vaughn and Jeff and company. We've done the job task analysis for the 2101s, okay, out there at the SSCs. Then there's another group at Drexel University who's taking those data plus supplemental data. They're following the documentation chain. If you say, okay, perform preventive maintenance on a VOR. And somebody actually sent me the documentation chain that the tech then has to go and open and go look at. It's like 6 different documents by the time you get down to undo panel A to access circuit B. And they're trying to track down that level of detail. That's very useful for the training community because that gets you into the nuts and bolts of how to work on system X or provide service Y. Then we need to look and say, okay, how's this job changing? We call that strategic job analysis. It's really sort of crystal ball gazing, but it's a structured process. Then there's, how's the training needs to change? What kind of things do we need to be training on? Those are what we're proposing for out years. They're not funded yet. These are not set in stone. We would like to see the hiring process redesigned. In what ways? That's something we could talk about. I don't know if you're going to touch on that, Elizabeth, but that's a question. One of the big things we're working on right now, my colleague Larry Bailey, is the NASAO. They're just growing leaps and bounds, taking on more and more responsibilities. What are their knowledge, skill, and ability requirements? Do they need people who are 2101s, 16 something or other, 25 something or other, the cybersecurity warrior types? How do they write their JATs? So we're working with them to try and identify some of those issues. Engineering services, I've heard a number of folks from engineering services. You're up next. What's going on in those different jobs? And there's not just one job in the engineering services. I think there's a whole bucket full of jobs. So we're going to be diving into that as the next big target. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to do through the next several years. What I would like to ask this is just points of contact for the human factors research community. Dan Hirschler is the manager at headquarters. That's his contact information. I am not a manager. I'm just a principal investigator, researcher, working stiff. Carol Manning has the unlucky privilege of being my manager. Trying to manage 6 PhDs is literally like herding cats. It's interesting. That's her contact information. Laura Schmidt is a clearinghouse for a lot of the requirements and making sure this stuff gets in front of the people that need to sign off on getting work done. She's a program analyst, and there's her contact information. My information, and then my colleague Larry Bailey, who's working on the NASAO information. And I'm the only Dana Broach in the email directory, so I'm easy to find. With that, what I'd like you to think about is, okay, we've got this job analysis information. There's issues around the hiring process that it could be used to support. My understanding so far is the VON has not attached job jeopardy to common principles. The question is, okay, what do we do next then? And I'm not sure what you all would like to do, but I'll open it up for questions and discussion. There's a question in the back.
Good morning, Dr. Broach. Thank you. Excellent. I was wondering if we have or will go into physical and psychological evaluations as well.
Let me talk about that. Yeah, we did ask very specific questions about physical abilities, for example, lifting and carrying. We did find evidence from the responses from the people doing the work that they do have to lift up to 50 pounds from time to time. Anything in excess of that, they have to get a lift, essentially, to lift it up. There is not enough data in the job analysis results to support a medical qualification standard for this occupation. That's been discussed with the federal air surgeon already because it's been raised. The only verifiable medical requirement is color vision, and he can't build a standard on one requirement for a medical. Color vision is an important thing, but a standard has to cover more than that. Psychological requirements is an interesting term. What do you mean by it?
By the way, this is Alex Sotomayor from the Academy. I apologize. By psychological requirements, sometimes they say ATSSs are like Maytag repairmen. There's long moments of boredom interrupted by sheer moments of terror. But the thing is that you have to be able to handle some pressure sometimes. Mm-hmm. You might have your area operations manager over your shoulder, a bunch of technicians around you, and we have to figure out the solution to an outage. So that's a pressure situation, for example. That's only one, but there's many others.
Yeah, that's what I would call the other than technical skills or abilities. Again, because the way the Americans with Disabilities Act works, we wouldn't include any psychological characteristics like personality testing as part of the medical exam. The air surgeon's already ruled that out. Where you get at it, that is the interview, is about the only place you can get at it right now, and that's under development right now. And that's you've got a balance there between the day-to-day grind of the job, which sometimes is kind of boring, and then, pressure comes and you got to get something restored real fast right now because air traffic is screaming bloody murder. You can't stop traffic in Chicago at 5 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Thank you, Casey, for that one. Who's had that problem? Measuring those things is hard and imperfect. And how people will react under a stressful situation is almost impossible to predict. But we can do it, at least through the interview, try and get at some of those softer kind of things and how might they operate under pressure. The other way to look at it is look at their job history. and really focus on that and get information from them about what kind of situations they've been in, how did they handle it, what happened, what was the consequence, that kind of thing. So good interviewing is a real key. Other questions, please. I'm not that good to have answered all questions. There's a question.
So, yeah, this is Pat McQueen, Tech Ops, technical training. So you had 40% folks told you about their job. So in that, there should be a band of operation control folks, and we're talking about the air traffic piece and the pressure. Was there a indicator as to like the operations personnel and their need to know the air traffic side? So, you know, imagine at an RC where air traffic comes up and talks about some of the new next-gen capability. And did that show up? And can you speak about that? As far as operations personnel, their need to know air traffic, lingo, and applications, and that
Pat,
pressure point?
when you say
Thank you.
operations personnel, are you talking OCC, SOC?
Yes, exactly.
They were excluded from this analysis.
Oh, okay.
This is SSC only.
Okay.
So the OCCs and the SOCs were not surveyed. On the other hand, we did ask about air traffic knowledge of the SSC people. It's not a big item, but it's a useful thing for them to have some knowledge about the air traffic side of the house.
Thank you.
SOCs and OCCs need to be looked at, but that's also part of NASAO. Yes, sir.
My name is Eddie Bunton. I'm with AJI 2310. I came through as an 856 long time ago, and we had a pass-fail situation there. And I wondered how far do you take your study back as to pass-fail?
Well, we didn't look at the outcomes at the academy. I mean, Mike Eidensheet can speak to the quote pass unquote rates currently. We've not gone back historically and looked at the outcomes from previous iterations. There's been so many changes over the last 30 years.
Yes.
And the records are not easily available. In fact, in many cases, they're not available. So we didn't really go back and look at that.
Okay, okay. And the reason why I asked is because doing ET qualifications, we went through the same process, but it was a longer course, and it was more intense. And as I look at the iteration or the way the training is evolving, it's actually getting shorter, more condensed, precise, a little bit more precise, but it was still basic electronics training, and still basic electronic troubleshooting, you know. And now we're getting to the administrative portion of it, and we're trying to say, okay, what is it that we do as technicians? Because now we're no longer technicians. I mean, from a technical standpoint. So, do you see a future title change coming?
That's a good question, because the job is changing. The size of the line replaceable unit, for example, is increasing. You don't crack open a VHF radio box from Motorola because you'll void the warranty.
Right.
So you're not troubleshooting at the component level anymore on a circuit board. And the circuit boards, oh my gosh, I mean, the very large scale integrated circuits are tremendous. So the job is changing. I mean, and that's one of the interesting things that we get out of this job analysis is some of the old stuff like Thevenizing a circuit,
Right.
you know, they don't do that much anymore on the job in reality. We ask folks about some things. What do they actually do on the job? What proportion of the time do they spend doing X, Y, and Z, like doing computations? Does a field tech do calculations of any kind? Well, yes, they do actually. They do a lot of simple math. They sometimes double check the readings, but they don't do trig on the job because the calculator does it for them. So there's changes.
Now you just got to saying you added another component, a calculator. Now, so that person now know how to use a calculator.
Yep.
Scientific calculator. Okay, so now that's a complex tool.
Yep.
Okay, so like I said, we are evolving.
We're evolving, we're
and-
changing.
And the test equipment is becoming more complex.
It is indeed.
One piece of test equipment now take the place of 5 pieces of test equipment. So, and which is good in a sense.
It makes things simpler in one respect and harder in another aspect.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes it simpler because you could do, one machine to do 5 different tests, but now you've got multi-point failures and you're trying to figure out what to address there, so it becomes harder in another sense, and you've got to understand what is the equipment telling you. So there's a lot of nuances here. This barely scratches the surface and gives us an idea of where to shine additional light to do further investigations. And we could talk about all kinds of requirements that you'd like us to look at.
Thank you. I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Yeah, there are 1,000 questions to ask still. There's a question online.
Do you think pay influences the qualifications of people we can hire?
Say that again.
Do you think pay influences the qualifications of people we can hire?
I couldn't say. I don't have any data to speak to that, so I don't know. I know that we're competing, particularly in many areas with other employers, and so we might not be the employer of choice if we're hiring at the F&G bands. Certainly for engineers, we suck. So, good question, though. That sounds like an HR question.
Hello, my name is Robert Collins. I'm from AGI 2310. And my question is on the pre-assessment.
Microphone.
My question is on the pre-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
What's the feedback as far as pre-assessment? Because that would really help us.
Well, I agree. And I just got my time warning. There's no plans right now. We have proposed a research project, and we're trying to scrounge up funding to do some of the early work. I'm a firm believer in structured pre-hire assessments. I think relying on self-reports of knowledge and skill is useful but not definitive of what a person can actually know and do on the job, particularly in a highly technical discipline like this. There are roadblocks to any kind of standardized formal assessment for pre-hire purposes. And in fact, the biggest problem, quite honestly, will be civil rights, because they don't like testing. We tried testing in the 90s with the BEST test.
Correct.
Yeah. I was involved with that. I know the history. I actually did the analyses of the test. So I'm pretty familiar, and I still have it up in my filing cabinet. I'm sorry?
I took the test.
You took it?
Yeah.
Okay. It was an electronics test. And if you could memorize the study guide and pass the test, we'd hire you. We lost that one because the job analysis was insufficient to justify it. Not from any technical merit of the test itself, but the opposition pointed out weaknesses in the job analysis, and the case law is if you can't support your test by a job analysis, you don't even get out of the starting gate, and we didn't get out of the starting gate. That's what happened. That's one of the reasons why we did this comprehensive job analysis. I'd like to go there because I don't trust when somebody says I'm a guru on radar automation and environmental law on their self-assessment. Let's test them at that level and see if, in fact, they know the kinds of things. And the things that can be done with testing now online, I've had a couple of demonstrations from vendors. They can put up a simulated radar. I mean, the rotating apparatus, mast, I think is the appropriate term, the antenna, and make it squeak and like a bearing is going out, all in simulation, all online over the internet. There's wonderful things that they could do that we could take advantage of.
You also mentioned about Devonizing the circuit. And I've heard that argument quite a bit, because I've worked with Mike and Alex. But here's the thing. If you can Devonize a circuit, you can fix anything that we throw at you later. You know, it's a defined standard. And it's something that's met, that you have the ability to do that. And
Yeah.
Unfortunately, through the years, we've made this, we've watered it down, and we've dropped it down. And the problem is, when you get a group of people come in, just as we're talking about, is where you have people that don't have the skill set. And then in a 9-week course, try to make them electronics technicians. it doesn't work.
Well, the problem there is we've got to follow them out on the job and demonstrate that they're not able to perform the core and essential functions of the job if they don't know how to thevenize the circuit. Show me the data.
Right. And so, it's one of these things where, when we're having people, I mean.
And we've got other questions.
Okay, then I'm done.
Yeah, because we can go on that. So I've had this discussion, thevenizing circuit, trigonometry, a number of different topics. We've got to look at how people perform on the job to make the case. In the back.
Stacy Harth at PSS in Minneapolis asked, will the PSS position be filled with 2101s in the future?
I have no idea. It's not a job I know what it is, but we've not done any analysis. I don't know.
So for the person that asked that question, I just want to make sure that they know that we're taking an IOU. That's a tech ops hiring question. That's outside the scope of Dana or anyone in this room to answer. So we'll take that back to tech ops leadership, okay? I just want to make sure that people know that we're taking their questions seriously. Thanks.
Hi, Michael Flynn, Renton, Washington.
Hey, Mike.
And I think you kind of answered my question already, but I was curious if the report looked at the background of the people we're hiring, the new hires. Overwhelmingly, we have a lot of military. So, I mean, if you maintain an ASR 11 in the military, you're probably going to be able to maintain an ASR 11 in the FAA. But for a while, we had CTI students, and I don't know if the report looked at the background of those individuals. But you said, "Show me the data," so I kind of got that answer that you maybe didn't have the data.
No, we've not actually looked at those data. That's something I've wanted to dig into, is take the aviator data from the Aviation Careers Division for Tech Ops for 2101, the job applications, and look at those. For example, there's a common perception that people are marking themselves as fives down the road. They're an expert on everything, and they've had all this wonderful experience. Well, what is the distribution? Is that true or not? What do the data say? I think it's an interesting question to ask two things about people's background. What is their background? Technical background in particular. The second is then, what happened to them on the job? How long did they take to get their certifications? How productive are they on the job? We don't have that kind of follow through right now to track somebody out on the job and know how long it took them to get their certs, to know how well they perform the job, how much confidence the supervisor has in them to handle those tough situations that do come up. Because I know you've got your go-to people. When things are down, there's the folks you call, and then there are the folks that you only call as a last resort. We don't have any insight into that. So that's something that's lacking in all of this, is a follow-through, tracking people out onto the job, how well do they do, and then tying that back to where did they come from, what knowledge and skills did they have, because that would help improve the selection process, closing that feedback loop. We don't have it right now. Other questions? You're not going to let me off that easily. Oh, come on. Job analysis is fascinating. Yes, ma'am. I'm also known as a job analysis nerd.
Okay, I'm Roberta Water, AJI. Last week I was up there. One of the problems we have, the new hire, they say NHN, they're not coming in the right skill right now. We need to have people that come in and know how to understand networking. And all the people that come in, the new hire, because I met some of the new hire the other day when I was in Denver, they don't understand the networking, how to be networking, and how to do critical thinking, all that kind of stuff nowadays, because we're not pulling things out anymore. So you got to be on your toes on how to do critical thinking, and you got to understand how the networker works. That nation and stuff coming in, and most of our tech is not there yet. And so we have to increase our course length to cover that information they should already know.
Well, there's a question, how much networking do they need? Because the job analysis says it may vary from position to position as opposed to the occupation. But is that changing? As far as critical thinking, there are several of the abilities that were tagged that really relate to critical thinking, because critical thinking is actually a very complex psychological idea. It involves problem solving, it involves problem identification. We do have things that we say are important to the job based on the job analysis results that point towards what you would call critical thinking. The question is, how do you measure it? How do you assess whether somebody can be a critical thinker? And that turns out to be a trickier question. And just saying, oh, I think you're a critical thinker doesn't work very well. And it's not actually something you can do in an interview that easily. So it needs to be assessed, yeah, but how? That's the question. Other questions? Abby, uh-oh.
Abby Smith, Technical Training. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dana, the Logistics Center is has a lot of issues. One of the things that the Logistics Center has data on is that there's a lot of equipment that's being sent to them for repair that's perfectly okay. I mean, a huge amount. And so there's a time to return to service as well as a cost, a real value and a cost savings, both, that's on the table. Working together, there might be a pre-assessment testing, and there's also a training component that involves this community to reduce false positives. So it might be part of what Roberta was talking about with critical thinking. It also might be problem solving. So thinking about the opportunity for research, what might that look like?
What might that look like? That pre-hire assessment. What I would envision is an internet-based testing system that the SSC manager can tailor to the position requirements, to a particular position, where it's primarily scenario simulation-based testing as opposed to multiple guess, multiple choice, and factual, where we use the kinds of capabilities that exist now in the marketplace to present a problem that has a solution tailored to what that person said their knowledge and skill level was. So if they said, I did A school in the Navy and B school and I worked on shipboard radar repeaters primarily, the test would then be tailored around radar basics. And if that's what the facility manager, the SSC manager is hiring for, somebody who's got radar experience, they could emphasize that. I would envision a very flexible system then that could be tailored to the requirements of that particular position. It's achievable now, and that would be hiring locally with nationally standardized tools, which corporations are moving to across the country. Plant managers, organizational unit managers in major corporations. HR's moved everything to the cloud. Guy down in Plano, Texas, there's a big Frito-Lay, it's in Paris, Texas, it's the Frito-Lay plant. They manufacture Fritos. That's where all the Fritos in the country are made. It's a huge plant. And that manager hires people using tools that are run out of White Plains, New York, out of Frito-Lay headquarters, because I know the guy who helped develop them. So he makes the decision, but he uses standardized tools to assess whether these plant workers have the basic, in this case, basic literacy to come in and work in that plant. So we could do the same thing. Other questions? I got all kinds of dreams.
Hi, Dana. Valdry Buford, FAA Academy. Tying a couple of things in that, I'm sorry? The new guy.
The new guy.
Tying a couple things in that Abby mentioned and the gentleman across the room. When you did the job analysis, about 20 years ago, when we had ETs, the job was different in the sense that they would come to the academy, they'll be trained, they'll be assigned to maybe a VOR that has a TACAN and a radio, and that became their site. And they could pretty much walk into the building and they could listen to the equipment and know that something was right or wrong. That's how intimate they became with the equipment. Nowadays, we send them to automation, radar, NavAids, communication, environmental system. They're going around doing PMs, and the PMs are less frequent. We've found that there's a little bit more reliability-centered maintenance there, so the PMs are less frequent, and they see the equipment, they touch the equipment a lot less often.
Yep.
And when they do, it's on the surface. And more often than not, and the reason I'm speaking this is I was an SSC manager. I've been an SSC manager in 2 locations. So the technicians go in there and they miss things that if they were more familiar with the equipment, they would catch early prior to the failure.
Yeah.
And that in turn, because they're not as intimate with the equipment, that in turn feeds directly into what Abby was saying, where you have the shotgunning. That's essentially what it is. They're basically ordering 5 or 6 components with a hope that one of them will work. And the reality is, it may just be an alignment, but their comfort with the equipment and familiarity with the equipment precludes them from being able to do that.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, did your study take all that into, because to me that's a bigger, and when you talk about the future networking and all, that's a bigger change. We've adjusted the way that we use our personnel now over the past 20 years, and that's a bigger issue than anything else.
Well, I mean, the job analysis only reflects what people are doing now. So, and that's something that I would see in the data. I see in the data is that there's not as in-depth an understanding or ownership of a particular facility anymore. There are pros and cons to that, but it's just a snapshot of the job as it is done now. And it doesn't take into history, and I just got the cut sign. So I'm available to talk. I'll be here all day. Thank you very much for your attention. Nobody went to sleep that I could see.
All right, thank you, Dr. Broach. Okay, as a 2101, we do our common principles first, right? Now we do concepts courses. So now we're going to have revitalizing concept courses. We have Elizabeth Doucette. She was destined to be a technician because when she was younger, she worked on boats and engines. So here she is, Elizabeth. Our second speaker is Mike Eidenschink. We got a lot of football fans in here today. He's a Dallas Cowboy fan. But he is also an OKC Thunder fan. Yes. So I guess we got to go like this with him, right? All right, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Eidenschink, an instructor at the Academy, and my name is Elizabeth Doucette. I'm an employee in Tech Ops, and I am on temporary assignment working in tech training, Tech Ops tech training, and together we're going to talk to you today about training transformation.
Yeah, I want to say, where's the guy from, anybody here from Seattle? Seattle? Thank you, thank you. My favorite guys. What we do today, we're sort of starting off with the approach of what we do today. All of our concept courses, to include the common principles courses, are primary instructor-led. And there are some benefits to instructor-led training. I think we can all agree that there are some benefits, but there are some restrictions associated with an instructor-led approach to all of our concept courses. And those issues are it's costly. People have to come to Oklahoma City, and they have to be trained by multiple instructors for a significant period of time. The time frame on almost all of our concept courses are 4 weeks to up to 8 weeks. And so that is not only what we call CTTMS dollars, the money that's spent to sit them in the seats and pay for their lodging and their per diem while they're here, but it's also, they have to be away from home, away from the job for that significant period of time. So those are some of the negatives of our approach that we have today. So what we're trying to do, and what we've in some cases have started on, is changing that as we can to sort of fit the needs of the ATSS as well as the limitations in resources that we are starting to see today. And basically, these are the courses that are under some level of transformation. And when we talk about transformation, we're just basically saying we want to get the transfer of knowledge to the person, but maybe using a different method and not looking at instructor-led training for the whole time as the panacea of training. Because, again, a lot of people can learn different ways. I mean, all of us have taken ELMS training forever. now. I mean, every year I'm going to do an ASH Savvy. You know, I don't go to a class for it. And there's a ton of courses, almost all of the management courses are through ELMS. So it is a viable way of transferring knowledge. So what we're going to talk about is all of these courses that we have up here and sort of give you an idea of where we're at in the transformation process. If we start off with the common principles, it is at the very beginning stages of transforming. That is primarily driven by Dr. Broach's analysis. We wanted to make sure that prior to making any decisions on the common principles course, we used valid data to make decisions. And so we have this report came out probably January, February timeframe. Even though there's several reports that will feed off of it, we were interested in what does the average ATSS need to do their job. So that's why the common principles transformation is in the very, very beginning stages. Sure, go ahead.
So, excuse me. So we brought together a team of people. It is the Common Principles team, Training Transformation Common Principles team. And we have stakeholders from AJW, a number of stakeholders from AJW. We have PASS on the team. We also have stakeholders from AMA, the Academy. We have stakeholders from AJG, which is Management Services. We have and AJI, Technical Training. So some of what we've done, we have some that are full-time members of the team and some we call ad hoc because we couldn't get them away from their primary duties to be on the team. So it's a team of 11 people, and we meet very regularly, and we went through, Dr. Broach was exceedingly patient with us as we dive into this data, because I have to say, everybody's got an opinion on how to rework common principles. I had no idea the feedback I would be getting when I took this job, right? Everybody's got an idea. It's so simple at a high level, and yet it's not. It's very complex. It's very multifaceted, as Dana spoke to. So he came on board and briefed us, and I wanted to give, I have bargaining unit people on the team as well as managers. And so I wanted people to be able to be comfortable. I didn't want to try to represent some summary vision of Dr. Broach's product. And he was very gracious to sit with us, go through all of that data, dig through all of it. Multiple iterations of questions. You wouldn't even believe how much we talked about math, right? How much is enough? How much is too much? You know, what level does the math need to be? So one of the things we tried to build basically a straw man. So I'm a jarhead. I know there's other jarheads in here. And so here's something very simple. Every Marine is a rifleman, whether you're a cook, an ordnanceman, an avionics technician like myself, whatever it was. First and foremost, you're a rifleman. So what we did is we stood up in the room and we said, what does every ATSS need? Doesn't matter which discipline you're going to go to, doesn't matter which SSC you're going to go to. It was important that we reach out to and partner with people that are revamping the concepts courses. We didn't want to take out something out of common principles. If the concepts rework team are going, well, we're not going to teach that, we're going to take that out because you get it in common principles. Because then, you know, look at what we've just done if we're not working in harmony with one another. And so moving down the line here, radar concepts and ILS concepts. I partnered with Scott. We've had a lot of meetings talking about that. We're looking at, does everything need to actually happen at the Academy in the realm of concepts? Can some of it be through university, you know, outside of the Academy, which is not a ding on the Academy. These are precious resources here as their instructor workload goes smaller, time, money, and people, right? We want to be able to give you a hands-on time as a technician in a safe place where you can bring it all the way down to parade rest, learn that thing inside and out. You're not impacting the NAS. You're not having to try and get schedule releases. You're not working on operational gear. So there's a role to play here, and our Academy partners have worked very closely with us. So I'm not sure if we're going to go out to them, to Scott and others in a few minutes, or did you want to keep going on common principles?
No, we can keep going.
So, Scott, would you like to say something about NAV? And Okay. All right, so the ILS, all of these are in different stages of transformation. They're not all in the same place. They're on one slide for bullet points because we're trying to make it as brief as possible so we can stop and hear from you. Fiber optics concepts, I would like to, where's Anthony? Anthony, would you like to speak to the state of our transformation of fiber optics?
Sure. Anthony Murray, Section Manager at the Academy on Detail with AJI 2300. So with fiber optics, over the years, the need has increased, and it got to a point where the Academy was having difficulty with meeting that requirement. So one of the options came out was about the transformation. And with fiber optics, what we did was we switched from IoT to, you could call a blended learning. So basically, in a nutshell, we took the theory out and we placed it in the ELMS format, and then we repackaged the lab. The significance to that was with the prerequisites tied to the theory part, then that released a bottleneck to where now that was not an issue for individuals needing to take system courses or other courses that was needed. However, if someone still needed to get the additional training, we do have the lab component that is not a prerequisite, but that gives an option to get the additional training. So it is in the final stages of validation. The expectation would be it should be available in FY18. So time will tell on how that's going to be effective, but we are optimistic that it will meet the needs of everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. The other course, it used to be called Automation Concepts, and it's a Unix and networking for NAS systems. That course is probably the most developed transformation course we have in the concepts world. It was a 36-day long course, all instructor led at the Academy, with a maximum throughput of 12 students per class. Currently, Joe, is it in first course conduct or is it OTO still? Thank you, Joe. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm very optimistic that what we're going through today, I'm calling it our second validation event. And what? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Joe Freiberger from the Academy. Sorry. So we're very optimistic. Right now, we're going through the second validation event. We're in the second module. The first part of the course, the first and second module, are distance learning. We're utilizing Blackboard for the first time in Tech Ops for that training. So it's going very well. The students are progressing well. We've implemented some interactive things in the Blackboard that we can do with videos and other things. We've also implemented discussion boards. So it's for those of you who have taken Blackboard courses in college, you know that the discussion board is an important part of that you're interacting with other students. And it also gives our instructors a good feel for how the student is grasping the material. If they're on a discussion board and they just really don't seem to know what they're talking about as far as what they're supposed to be discussing, we contact them. Also during the distance learning, they can contact our two instructors. We have office hours for them. They can get them on link, they can get them on email, they can get it. We have a special phone number that's just for the Unix and Networking Concepts course that they can call into. So we've got all those things that we're going through right now. The distance learning portion of it is lasting for 4 weeks. It's about 50 to 60 hours of material, so the 2 to 3 hours a day that they would be doing this, so this frees them up to do their normal duties, although most of the students that we anticipate going through the course will be developmental students, so that, you know, hopefully they can get on an admin schedule and do this course diligently. Then after they complete that, they've got a week before they will come then to the Academy for the resident portion of the course, and we'll take them through Module 3 and 4, which are the labs for the Unix and labs for networking. And so they'll get all that information as well while they're here. So.
Thank you, Joe. So a lot of the effort that Joe's section put in is sort of groundbreaking for us. And so what we're trying to do is in some of the other disciplines, radar, ILS and nav concepts, is sort of utilize that plan. And again, I think it's appropriate to try sampling or test driving it in one area before you and figure out what works and what doesn't work. So we're all anxiously trying to learn from the automation concepts of approach to learning and see how it works in our area. The radar section and the ILS and nav sections, they're in the very beginning stage of determining how they even want it to be. One of the things I think we determined in those were two different concepts courses, but there's a lot of similarities between the ILS tech and the nav tech. And so the approach was to sort of blend those two courses together instead of having it two concept courses, have it one concept course. And actually three, because they wanted the antenna and transmission lines to be an independent portion of that. Because you have to sort of meet the needs of the future, but also meet the needs of today. So you'd want to have a person who's may have been to nav landing or nav course to be able to go to ILS without going through the whole thing. So I think inside of these courses we were putting in, I call it a CLEPing capability, where you can go take a bypass exam and go into an area because you've already had that. Same with the antenna and transmission lines. You can go in and bypass that had you had it someplace else. Help a person get through it quicker, sort of almost customize it for their own needs. So those are the concepts. Go ahead.
Joe's mentioning of videos made me think of this. We had in the Common Principles team an awful lot of talk about the use of videos, both as formal training and for what we're calling performance support, stuff that you're not enrolled, it's not accredited, you're not going through the formal training process. However, if it's a task you haven't done very frequently, perhaps an annual or something like that, you could go in and you could see something before you're doing that. You could refresh your processes, and we could put in there all those kinds of things that we can do. In addition to 508 compliance and all that, we can put in there, coordination reminders, PPE reminders, and that sort of stuff. So there's been an awful lot of conversation surrounding that, and there's been a lot of work done on that. And there's a service area out there that is actually, within Tech Ops, that is actually using a video library. So we've been partnering very actively with them to look at that, to look at how they built their criteria for governance and how they have a gatekeeper and how they do that. But ideally, moving forward, the Tech Ops field personnel could actually do videotapes of some things and go through a submission process. Meanwhile, through AJI, we're going to work at the actual training portion. We have to make sure it goes through the validation properly and all those things. But anyway, it is an additional tool. Couple that with some of the things we were talking about yesterday for like the LCMS with that learning content management system, and how if we need to actually do revisions to it, we're going to have the agility and the ability to do that and get that back out quickly. We want to be able to modularize things and get it custom to you what you need quickly, effectively and efficiently.
Before you go on, a question came in. Will you speak directly to who these team members are, specifically who from Tech Ops participated?
Certainly, you're going to test my memory because I didn't bring them up here with me. Let's see, Ed Phipps out of Boston, frontline manager. Ramon Ruiz, he is a NASTEP employee, environmental background. Victor Marvel. Victor Marvel, I've forgotten where he's out of.
Victor Marvel, this is Charles Stimley. Victor Marvel is out of Martinsburg, but he does additional training, what used to be 6015 training across the service areas.
Okay. Jim Mayer. Laura's AJG, and we're very happy to have you.
Myself, you.
Yes, yeah.
Alex.
Oh, Gunny, Robert Collins. My apologies. I certainly,
We're missing someone. Yes.
that's right. That's who I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. Thomas Rinke is our pass rep, and he is out of Washington Center.
That's it.
That's it from Tech Ops.
Okay.
Christy Fischel, Indianapolis, PSS. Common Principles includes the RF Principles class and is an equivalent to the Environmental Concepts class. Are those also undergoing transformation, and will they be pulled out of Common Principles?
It's not on the radar screen right now. The RF Principles course right now is a correspondence course. I believe that's the one you're talking about. Right now, what happens in the Common Principles course is we give it's a course composed of 5 modules, math refresher, basic electronics, antenna and transmission lines, troubleshooting, and networking. I hope I didn't leave anything out, but I hope that's 5. As a person successfully completes math refresher, they get credit for a math refresher course. As they complete Module 2, they get credit for RF Principles. As they complete Module 3, Basic Electronics, they get credit for Basic Electronics. We currently do not have an equivalency for troubleshooting and networking. We just don't have that. So the reason we have those is if a person's unsuccessful in CP, but they did successfully complete parts of it, they will get credit for completing the parts they were successful at and not have to go through a process that makes them take everything if they weren't unsuccessful in everything.
I forgot Kevin McGonigal. My apologies, Mick. I'm very sorry. Yes.
Hey, this is Mike Rohr from Seattle Engineering Services. One thing I'm hearing from engineering managers quite a bit is that the math refresher course is unnecessary for engineers, and that the waiver process to get it is more time consuming than it should be, and that they have to do it again and again and again for every course they apply to take. It's not like they get that refresher waived once and then it's applied to them as a person, and so they can just go on for every course. So they end up going ahead and taking the math refresher course. So it's just kind of a added cost and somewhat of waste of time for our employees to be doing that when they don't need to do it. So I don't know if there's any way to adjust that process to kind of just save cost and time for the employees. So as an engineer, just for knowledge, you have to take Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, differential equations, applied matrix theory. There's just some of the toughest maths on the college campus, and engineers have to take and master them all. So.
Got it. Yeah. Sir, can I answer that? I was the original math refresher instructor at the academy. I taught it also for 11 years with the NAF concepts. The engineers, I'm sorry, but they're the ones that failed the exam. They tried so many times to do a waiver. We said no waivers. Von Turner said no waivers, and they're probably the ones that failed most. I'm sorry, but that is what happened.
We're taking the action item.
Yes.
We'll take an action item. Yeah, that's a common thing. Okay, we're gonna move on. Our goals. Obviously, our goals are to provide the knowledge and skills that a employee needs to be successful in the equipment course. That's the whole purpose of everything. It's a prerequisite so that these folks can go to an equipment course, be successful, and go back out in the field and do good things. But we also want to, and our goal is to have something that is just more than I came to Oklahoma City once or I took this course once. We want to have some way of, if someone wanted to refresh themselves, that the knowledge or the tools are there, the videos are there, whatever we decide to do is always going to be there. Yes.
Just this is for people in the studio audience and our friends in the virtual audience. I think we're missing a key goal that should be the #1 goal is create the most value for the individual, right? Because our vision and mission is knowledge and skill transfer to the right person for the right reasons at the right time in the right place. Because one size fits how many folks?
One.
Right. It does not fit all. And so when we talk about cost is one factor of value. Value is really what we're going for, right? We want to create a mission-ready employee. And so we do that by tailoring curriculum and needs to that individual. Because you may not need all those things. You may need pieces and parts of those things. And as we move into the 21st century, because we're in the 21st century, we can leverage technology to tailor to individual needs to meet the mission of the FAA. It's about a value proposition, so I want to add that to our goals.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Go ahead.
Good morning, Bobby Simpkins, on detail to AGI. Hi, Elizabeth. I have a question. Dr. Broach touched it a little bit. Haven't seen you guys touch it. There's a lot of focus on the technical side of the house, but where are we teaching technicians to be technicians? We spend a tremendous amount of money for folks like Victor to come out and teach back to basics because we don't teach technicians how to log. A lot of the not so tangible things that technicians do, other than just working on equipment. And so we spend a lot of money for first aid, CPR, things along those lines. I think that's just as important for that training to get done when a technician shows up in the field as it is just to know how to work on the equipment. Because we spend as much time doing that or more time than we do to working on equipment a lot of times.
Thank you. So let me just speak to that very quickly. The team is in a proposal state, and it is really not yet a defined product. However, there's been an awful lot of talk. We've tried to make sure that we're harmonizing with other work groups that are out there, one of which was the onboarding team, which is a tech ops work group that's out there. So onboarding was happening at the academy, and now we're migrating to onboarding at the SSC, which means ideally, conceptually, what our team has been talking about is if we're going to onboard them at the SSC, what might they be able to take at the SSC prior to going to the academy for the first time. So if they're going to go ahead and take some math, can they take it, or basic electronics, can they take it at the SSC level? Then, by then, we could look at their time in Oklahoma being a little bit more lab heavy. And some of the things that we talked about is Victor does a FunDocs, which is fundamentals of documentation. So if they're a brand new person where they may not necessarily have a whole lot of exposure to the logging and documenting process, we've asked him to give us an introduction to FunDocs. So if they're going out to Oklahoma City for the lab intensive part where we're going to be doing the troubleshooting techniques and some other things, we could introduce some new. We could do an introduction to test equipment, intro to FunDocs. We've been talking to the people across the way at AML about LCSS training, how you're going to get your parts ordered. We still want to include the EOSH training, so people are still going to come out of there with electrical safety qualified person and CPR and other, those quandary of things. So what we're attempting to do is say, okay, we're onboarding you here, right, at the SSC. Prior to doing that, onboarding at the academy, besides taking up precious time, they're sitting there on travel, getting their PIV badge and their travel card, and perhaps if they relocated when they accepted the job, there's high anxiety there because they're wondering if their spouse or family has settled in, and that anxiety, I think, can bleed into their testing. They're not focused on their academics, they're worried about the family, that kind of thing. So, yes, in short order, there's an awful lot of things on the table about what we want to do. We're talking about ATSS Basic. We're kind of working off that boot camp thing. ATSS Basic is kind of a name we're lobbing around for whatever common principles might be. But those are plenty of things that are in the mix that we're talking about that are in our proposal state. Donna, you had a question?
Yes, Donna Muse, Boston PSS. Another key thing that I just came to mind was when all of these new tools are developed, we get automated messages now that when a new course comes out or something, and it's just half the time it's not paid attention to. What has been put in place to make sure that there's a wide notification to the right people who can use these tools when they become available, so everyone knows that they're there?
I think I need you to say more. What tools are you speaking about?
Oh, like, look, the new courses, like if they're launched in ELMS, how will people know that they're there? How is it going to be addressed to the widest target audience to make sure that they know that these refresher courses are available or other new online tools are available?
We do have a presence at the SUPCOM meeting, one specifically for Common Principles right now. That would be an excellent way of getting it to the SSC managers. We also have the training telecon that's a periodicity, and obviously these would be directed by changes in course numbers, which is information we provide on a periodic basis. So those are the key things I have control over.
The last thing I would offer is when we're finally able to get this to closure, I'm sure that through our senior executives, this is going to be communicated in every facet possible that we're done with whatever the course is called, ATSS Basic or whatever. So we'll begin that communication strategy with you and then build on that.
Hello? Okay. It's on. Luis Ramirez, Group Manager Curriculum. You just kind of touched on the question that I was about to ask. When do you think the group will be done with the what? And my emphasis is on the what, because we have a tendency to get caught up in the how piece. But end of this quarter, next quarter, not to put you on the spot as far as the date, but can you bound that?
We're working to try to have something in draft mode to my boss this month or next. Obviously, as Dr. Broach said, there's more data coming. So I'm not sure if that's an initial draft, but we are really trying to get this item closed and in through a review process. So we would like to actually ask you to work in your table groups. What we want, what we're asking you to help us with, is concept training of the future. How do you see that? The how and the what of concept training. We want to partner with people that are in work here on the slide before, where we're talking about all these different concepts, all these different stages of things, and what other considerations should be determined a way forward. So what we would really like is if you guys could crowdsource or brainstorm some of these ideas and perhaps take about 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops, and then we could do some report out on that for your ideas, your input, the things that you could help us with. Do you have anything to say to that? Have them write it on. Write it on the yellow pads, the yellow paper. There's lined pads at your table.
Well, you know, and see, that's part of the problem. Jim Mayer thinks that every time somebody comes up with something from the field, we should bend over backward and give them credit for whatever. That's just how it operates. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, so if you can wrap things up and everybody to start to get back into your positions.
Hello, hello, hello. Start. Hello. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have this table report out. What y'all talk about?
So they basically, each table basically has 60 seconds. Yeah.
But you did write your answers down on the yellow pad, so if that's what we want at the very end.
If y'all could keep one thing.
One thing, even though you got 10, give us one.
Tom Frano, Frontline Manager, Portland. Considerations moving forward, technology, Blackboard, simulated training, and let's move quicker on that stuff. We hear about it for years, and we still wait for it.
Thank you. Next table.
Scott Williams, AJI 2320 requirements. Finally got me up here to talk. Okay. What we talked about was the need for integration and the design of tools to help enhance the visual part of the learning. Things like simulations, animations. We feel like there's going to be a need to learn how to better use our remote resources with our, with our instructors, kind of like we heard from back there, about how they're available all the time for the students once the online training begins. And one important thing is we have to not dumb down the course. We just need to make it better using different techniques. And we need to bear in mind that we can't lose those things that we have and we really need. We just need to do it in a different way. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. This table.
Jason Lai, PSS. So there's no one size fits all, and there should be a way to customize training to individuals. And also, can some core concepts training be procured at other locations besides the academy?
Thank you. Let's go with this team.
Hi, Mary Thomas from MOCC, and this is my table, number 4. And we like the modules to break up the concept training. We like virtual reality settings with 3D, with hands-on. We like augmented reality. And we were thinking about using local universities, VOTEC for basics training, like math and basic AC/DC. And for the question 2, identify what you want to do, identify skill gaps, choose training options. And 3 is cost, value, and availability.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning. Jim Mayer, AJW1. I'm going to read these real quick. We need a piece for NASEO and ES. We need maybe put forward some processes that are currently in place, like bypass stuff. That's probably not well known in the field. Maybe we could just reuse those. We definitely need troubleshooting techniques. We need to simulate the old and the new processes and the old approaches. We don't want to forget those because there's a lot of value there. Probably one of the things that Mike and I like a lot is tying the performance support video / training with the TechOps system service reviews.
Thank you.
Menas Roros, muffin sampler. Washington, D.C. headquarters, technical operations. Oh, 1 minute, okay. Boy, that'll teach me to go on a little break, huh? So we kind of addressed, there's some overlap in the answers to these. And so for number one, the ideas that we have, to still use what we called 3D interactive tools and training. So, mandatory training, a lot of it is that is online, is either a presentation or a series of slides. And, face it, a lot of people just kind of turn it on and kind of do other stuff. They're not paying attention. So, it's going to the online format, make sure that it's 3D interactive tools, use those, make the most out of those, and include maybe demonstration, other things. For the future, mobile component, make sure it's accessible and that there's an avenue for follow-up, for asking questions, because you lose that interaction. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's why we had you write them down. We're going to collect them so they're not lost.
See, I didn't go for a muffin. And I've had caffeine. Dangerous combination. We had a couple of ideas. One, we called it on-demand concept courses, moving it online as much as possible. Even some of the lab portion could be moved online through simulation capabilities. Another idea I talked about was using concepts directly as a follow-on to common principles. Of course, there are all kinds of logistics there. Third thing, and this came up interesting, was some way to generate a learning plan for the individual that then generates training requests to AJI, and then which responds back with quota options and dates and things like that. So it would generate the training request. And then we mentioned bypass exams.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate bypass exams, more use of them. And also looking at administrative duties that technicians have to do is, one, being able to use SAL, Peabody, and all the other tools that we have, and making sure that they know how to use those tools in reporting. Also, looking at more bypass exams and making sure that we have an alternate path for technicians instead of going to the academy, looking for a way so that they can actually bypass the academy.
Thank you.
Bypass.
Jack Chapman, AGW2. We would like to see the concept course in the future prepare you to take the courses you need to do the job.
All right, thank you. That's our goal.
So we were more theoretical in our answers. The concepts needs to evolve with the skill set requirements. I'm sorry, I do this every time. Concept needs to involve with more the future skill set requirements of the employees. Using the strategic job analysis that Dr. Broach is working on would be a good way to do that. Recurrence of information is not a bad thing. It actually is necessary for the student to grasp the important foundations of their job, so it actually may even take a little bit longer to do. More proficiency is needed in the concepts and foundation for before moving on into the equipment. So they really need to grasp that foundation before they get their hands on equipment.
And from the field, they said if cost for CMTSS is being stressed as important, then the cost to onboarding cost for onboarding at SSC should not be borne by the SSC.
Okay. Is that it? Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it.
The yellow pads where you have jotted down all these fantastic ideas, I don't want to lose those. Could you please make sure that we get those? I'll walk around and I'll pick them up if necessary, but please don't discard them. Okay? I will do that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Elizabeth. My apologies for earlier. I'm way, way, way too passionate to the math refresher, if you can't tell. It's been lots of skin regrowing over that one. Anyway, is everybody ready for a break? Yes. All right, let's take a break. Come back in 30 minutes.
so strange, said you never know. While I try my best, hey, cover our eyes. It's a common way to blame and hide the truth. I know that some will say matters but little, babe. Oh, but come on and mean it to me. I need it so bad. I need it to try. Need it to fall. I need it to love. I'm burning away. I need never get old. Just standing in the rain, mean what you said, oh, and mean it to me. All of these lies, oh, and never again. Come on and say, and I'll say it's again. I know that some will say it matters but little, babe. Oh, but come on and mean it to me. I need it so bad. Oh, mean it to me. I need it so bad. That was pretty good. Let's try it one more time.
Can you hear us, Paul?
Come on, need someone. I'm gonna need somebody. I'm gonna need someone. I'm gonna need someone. I'm gonna rise and change my body. I'll start pulling out my hair. I'm gonna cover myself with the ashes of you, and nobody is gonna give a damn. Son of a bitch, give me a drink. One more night, on this camping me. Son of a bitch, if I drink it clean, 17 more will bury me. And somebody please just tie me down. Oh, somebody give me a goddamn drink. Son of a bitch, give me a drink. One more night. Someone waving me around. Someone carried me home. What was never noticed, sleeping on the floor. But I know you were there. Some were playing me around. Some were deaf and so low. Nothing seemed to matter as the night slipped away. It was so in the air. We were hurling at the moon. We were shaking our hips. That's until they cried, falling in our bed. Said, oh, let you go. So let me in or let me down. Let me lay here so slow. Baby, just keep holding. Gotta move our feet. 'Cause you know it ain't.
Sorry, I just saw you. I didn't mean to interrupt that. Dan said there was too much glare on my forehead, like I can take care of that. I was gonna text him back and say you're killing me, Small.
But I know you were there. We were hurling at the moon. We were shaking our hips. And we danced until we cried, falling into bed. And I won't let you go. We were hurling at the moon. We were shaking our hips. And we danced until we cried, falling into bed. And I won't let you go. Now we danced until we cried, falling into bed. And I won't let you go. When I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna tell. I was standing looking backwards in the out. You said there's room enough to cramp, and then we crowd. No movement here, no friends to break us out. Stop breathing, oh, well, just went fast. Oh, I don't know. don't know. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Goddamn thing. And there's moments I forget to tell myself. And if you're rolling in it long enough, your shit won't even smell. You still knowing I couldn't trust to point it out. Well, I can hardly breathe right here. I was spitting on myself. When I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna tell. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know a goddamn thing. This wound's gonna cancel me out. 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 Think of all the time you get to know it. Think about the world I found spinning right. Remember all the clothes I wore to hide it from you. Said let's take the long walk home tonight. Think of all the falling down and the hiding under. Think of all the time. Think of all the hours I spent, constant reflection. Well, it gets you down, but it don't make it right. Needing my personal intervention. What a waste of time. Got a feeling I can't get over. Maybe all we had has always been right. Think of all the love you gain when you send it over. Think of all the whole life spun to be here tonight. Think of all the time, 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 time. Think of all the time, 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 time. Think of all the time, 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 time. Think of all the time, 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 time. Think of all the time, 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 time. All we been round, all angry and crying. Well, it's how much can you yell? And hey, then, while I've been outside, well, it's standing and waiting, been where I am ever at. Well,
the game's up. You're surrounded. Come out with your hands on your head.
goddamn, I need a drink. Out on a weekend, I was standing in the corner, laughing about. You could fall in the rain or let the tears run out. Standing right over you, out on a weekend. I remember Kelly fell home, never too old to dance. Always trying to beat any time. Getting out of the taps, action over the steps of the falling eyes. Try to feel for it all. Falling eyes, try to feel for it all. Out on the weekend, send the children to bed and let the drinks come out. We'll play our favorite records and kiss on the mouth. All the friends are over, yeah. Out on the weekend, I remember Jack in the cold. Man, he went a perfect pair. Always brought a blanket to sleep on the ground. And when that perfect song, right until the sun came out, run his hands through your hair, and you just smile. out on the weekend. Think of all the time you get to know it. Think about the world I found spinning right. Remember all the clothes I wore to hide it from you. Said let's take the long walk home tonight. Think of all the falling down and the hiding under. Think of all the time. Think of all the hours I spent, constant reflection. Well, it gets you down, but it don't make it right. Needing my personal intervention. What a waste of time. Got a feeling I can't get over. Maybe all we had has always been right. Think of all the love you gain when you send it over. Think of all the whole life spun to be here tonight. Think of all the time. 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 Think of all the time.
I'm Nathaniel Rayliff.
And I'm Greg Barnes.
I've been here for 14 hours at this point. So.
Yeah, I've done a couple of videos for Nathaniel now, and we're here today doing another one. The concept of the video is the band are in some timeless location in the studio, recording their single, I Need Never Get Old. It turns out Nathaniel has a little pernickety, he's just not quite happy with it. He thinks they can do better, so he makes them do it again. And what becomes tape 2 becomes eventually tape 500 and then 2001. And 4 decades have passed trying to get that perfect take.
Way to blame and hide the truth.
We've just had a bunch of crazy makeup put on to look older. The concept of the video is that we're in the studio. I'm not happy with any of the takes, so I keep everybody in the studio for such a long time that we get old.
The inspiration for the comedic devices in this video were taken from real life. Brian Wilson used to use celery for real, which is used in the video, and he made the band wear fireman's helmets. Mick Fleetwood was kind of known for being so perfectionist in the studio that these albums would take forever. So we kind of drew inspiration from real life events, and Nathaniel was really into making fun of himself, so I don't think it comes difficult to him.
All right, if everybody can make their way to their seats. Sorry, break time is over. Everybody take your seats. Will somebody grab the folks outside, please? We're about a third empty in here. Should I? You ready? Got a couple. Never mind. I was going to say I had a kindergarten joke about my board one time. Nobody could solve it. I said, well, this become from kindergartners. All right, before we get going, I want to remind you of our 3 questions over here for your index cards, because after this next section, it'll be lunch, so we need our comments from the morning session. Again, tell us what is working, what is not working, and what we've missed. And leave those cards on your table, and we'll pick them up while you're at lunch. All right, this next, what's it called? Session that we're going to have has 2 people that are both football fans. One of them's college, Barbara King. She likes the Big 12. And we have Valdry. Where'd you go? You were right over here. Oh, there you are. I was going to say, you were right here. Okay, he likes the New Orleans Saints. Who dat? Okay, let's welcome Barbara King, Division Manager, and Valdry Buford. He's the Assistant Division Manager for AMA 20. They are going to show us some cool stuff. Virtual classroom.
Yeah, the only problem about
So is the green light on?
Can you hear me? Yeah, the only problem with being a football fan in my house is that my husband won't share the man cave with me. And so I have a little problem with that, and that's simply because, when we were building this house, he wanted the man cave, and so I thought, I could put some neat pictures, and so my pictures are off limit, and then I can't really sit in there and watch football with him, so big issue. I'll start out and talk a little bit about our team, the Training Services Support Division. I've had several people to ask what we do. We provide all the corporate services and shared services for our line of business stakeholders there at the Academy. And most people that know me, I refer to our team as the village. And because I tell them it takes a village, and so I know we've got part of the members of our village here. You're going to hear from them later today. John Espinosa and Brett and the cameraman, Mr. Kevin. So they're the engine behind what Valdry and I do. But that's a little bit about our team. Kudos to our group because they do a fabulous job. First slide. Oh, are you clicking for me? This is my sidekick. When he was gone yesterday, I said, how are you going to leave me here with Tech Ops, your folks? So anyway, he's here today, and so I'm thankful for that. When we say distance learning, most of you all are familiar with what you have today, CBI, correspondence study that I heard a bunch about, ELMS, but there's another piece of that that goes along with, which is where the Academy is really moving to, and that's the interactive distance learning. I'll talk a little bit about some of the Adobe Connect. These are some tools that are already available to you today. In fact, with the Adobe Connect, it provides you the web conferencing. It gives you online, you can do online presentations. You can do desktop sharing. And in fact, the ELMS program office, for those of you that work with the ELMS program, you know that we use the Adobe Connect to do the ELMS training when we brief you about the upgrade, the new things, the updates in ELMS. And so rather than bringing people all together into one room or doing a road show out, then what we typically do is use the Adobe Connect to set up a session, and that can actually be done via ELMS. You can actually show that. And so we've got a couple of videos and things that we actually put together. We'll make them available to you afterwards to show some of the capabilities, but that's available for you today. The Blackboard piece. Blackboard is, how many people are familiar with Blackboard? It's not new in academia. They've been using Blackboard for years. And so we're just now making the shift to use the Blackboard component. And what's nice about the Blackboard is that you got some more collaborative tools. I refer to Adobe Connect as the virtual learning or virtual classroom light, because it's a lighter version, but you can get up and going pretty quickly and doing some things, and it doesn't take you a whole lot of effort. One of the subject matter experts is at the Academy and very familiar with the tool. Just to throw the kudos out there to Bill Poteet, he is the distance learning branch manager, and so all of these folks that I may refer to are actually work for him. David Juarez is our guru there at the Academy on Adobe Connect. But moving back to Blackboard, Blackboard allows you to, there are more collaborative tools there in Blackboard. There's the blogging piece, the discussion boards, there's the wikis and things. And so in partnership with AMA 400, next slide, are you there? No, back one. In partnership with AMA 400, we have actually taken one of the instructor-led courses and converted it to Blackboard. I think I mentioned to you all yesterday how Dan borrows your resources. Do not give Dan your cell phone number. He calls you on vacation and asks, can he borrow your resources longer than what he's already intended to give them back? And so, but anyway, in partnership with Tech Ops, we took one of the instructor-led courses and actually converted this to Blackboard. And so, Dan, can you speak a little bit about that part of that?
Absolutely. So, my name is Dan Smith. I am the resource hog at the Academy for Tech Ops training. So our Unix and Networking Concepts course Actually, the original version was 36 days long. The course that we actually converted was reduced iteration to 28 days. And we wanted to be able to provide interactive learning for this subject matter because it's very complex and it can be somewhat dry and boring for the student, as well as we wanted to still maintain our hands-on approach to the training. And we thought that Blackboard was an excellent tool to use to package the interactivity between the students and the instructor, as well as student to student. So we have peer learning as well as student to instructor learning, and we're able to do that and still maintain a 10-day resident component where the students will come in and actually build a network. So we felt that that was kind of the benefit of both worlds, and we feel that we've actually been able to enhance the learning because the material that we provide the student in the distance world will stay with them throughout. So even when they come to the academy for the 10-day resident, they'll still have that material they'll be able to interact with and utilize throughout not just the learning portion of their training, but throughout their career. So we think that's a win. The other is we were unable to meet the demands of tech ops in terms of this curriculum as a prerequisite to many of our automation training courses. There was just no way for us to meet it in the existing format. And with this conversion, as we go into 2018, we'll be able to meet all of the prerequisite demands that we have.
Thanks, Dan. You know, I talked a little bit about the partnership. The other day I was driving, I began to think about our team, the role that we play. And the word came to me, Abby, was glue. What I like about glue is glue brings things together. It's an adhesive. And so if it's done right, you never see the glue, but you see the two pieces that come together or the final product. Yeah. So anyway, but this is one of the things. And so, you know, I'm talking about some of these tools and telling you about these, and that's because we have a lot of capabilities in-house. A lot of skills and a lot of talent in-house. We just need to learn how to utilize it. And so we're going to one more thing about the Blackboard piece. We're actually working on another project with air traffic where they're actually going to do their Blackboard a little bit differently. But what they're going to do, we're going to actually working with them to use their Blackboard, but they're going to use it in a classroom environment. And so it's a little bit different feel. But again, this is Blackboard and ELMS is paid for by the program office, so you don't pay for those. So I say use the heck out of it. All the functionality, everything that's there. There's a lot of you know, expertise in house. We've got on the trainer side, we have 3 of our ISDs, and all 3 of them currently teach online at other universities. And so the thing is that, I mean, these are all capabilities. All that expertise is here to help us move and make this shift. And so distance learning to me, I mean, that's kind of days of the old. What we have to do now is to move into more of the interactive. And that's simply because, I mean, people don't want to sit and look at the CBIs and do the CBIs and things. Valdry's going to talk about another piece here that's going to be very important, and that is that future culture. But one of the things we wanted to kind of show you in the process is a more engaging interactive tool. And again, this is in partnership with AMA 400. I say this is that all you need is opportunity, requirements, and technology, and you can make it happen. That's all is needed. And so, you know, but where we need you, today, I mean, this week has been very enlightening for me. I heard so many issues and things that some of the things that you guys talked about, we already have solutions for that are built. I'll give you one of the examples, and that's the content the CDN. How many of you are familiar with the CDN, the Content Distribution Network? That was birthed there at the academy, and it came about because at the help desk they were getting a lot of calls about courses bandwidth, courses not being able to run in the ELMS environment. And so what we did is the whole content distribution network is about a server that sits in your local DLP environment, the distance learning platforms, formerly CBI. And basically the course downloads once into that environment and you take it without all the buffering. And so when we first put that out, that went out to air traffic and we covered all the air traffic facilities, and I'm like, well, what about tech ops? You just left them completely out. And so AJI, in partnership with AJI, they provided the funding, and we are we have 400 distance learning platforms out there, and over 300 of those have already been equipped with the CDN equipment. So when you go back, you should already have that. And so we have a small percentage. We're about 86% complete with that project. And so once you, if you take it in that environment, you will have a much more pleasant experience. We will be done by September 30th. We're scheduled to complete that. So. Now we're going to kind of show you a demo of something that's a little bit more engaging, and with the help of Mr. Ryan and Mr. Paul back at the Academy.
Can you hear me, Barbara?
I can hear you, Paul.
Okay. So first off, my name is Paul Tanner. I'm with AMA 900, the NAS Technical Services Division with the Academy. And I was told to introduce myself. Jason Miller is in the other window. He'll introduce himself. I'm in the basement of Thomas P. Stafford. We're kind of focused on the ERAM equipment for today for the demonstration. And Jason will introduce himself and tell you where he's at.
Hi, my name is Jason Miller. I'm also with AMA 900, AMA 920 to be exact. I'm located in the Stafford building as well, but I am upstairs in the second floor, and this is actually like our studio for right now. So this is right now we're kind of showing you a secondary location.
So I got to start the conversation. Oh, sorry, Jason. I got to start the conversation with reiterating one thing Barbara talked about, and the other is to discuss. We have two things in common. One is our favorite high school football team. The other is Dan Smith. My conversation with Dan usually start with, have I got a deal for you? So if you get communications like that, you might run. No. Anyways, long story short, we're going to demonstrate what we fondly call ATV, which is an acronym that we have internally called Academy TV. Our goal was to set out and try and come up with a two-way interactive training platform that had recording capabilities. And we're utilizing three major components. The first being, we have, for the recording piece, we have a PC, has a capture card, and we have editing software and conversion software so we can record videos. In this conversation, we may refer to the CD2 training, or Common Digitizer training we did, which was about a 3.5-week course, 4 or 5 hours a day of video teleconferencing each day. And we utilized the recording piece to record most of the sessions, if not all the sessions of that training. The other piece for today is the video teleconference equipment, and that's how you're seeing both Jason and I at the same time. It's the way we accomplish the two-way streaming. And then lastly, we have an audio-visual bridge, or AV bridge, that provides controls for video and audio. So the video and audio kind of range, so we're going to talk about the video first. First one is the camera I'm in front of. It has the ability to have presets and move around the room. And we also have an auto-tracking camera that allows us in open spaces, where I'm going to be in the racks here in a minute showing equipment. Open space areas can follow you around the room wearing a medallion, and the cameras will track you around the room. So to show you some of the ways to control them, we use triggers. One of them is this pod, like a pod like this that has 4 triggers on it. and I can push a button, and for example, the camera will spin around the room showing you kind of a scanning view of the ERAM area plus the SOC area as we see there. I can also hit another button, zoom into possibly another monitor, and I can hit a different button and zoom in on an R position in this case. And then I can actually trigger it with a mat. You can't see it, but when I step on this mat, the camera would come back to me at where I stand at the mat. Now this was very handy when we had a podium. When you walk up to the podium, you can switch automatically to your PowerPoint presentation or Adobe files and things like that. And you can also do something when you step off of it. It will trigger another event, in this case, a camera in the rack showing the SDP or surveillance data processor that's in the rack. If you see in the smaller window, I can point at the camera. I can't show it to you, but it's up across the way from that computer. And I can do different things with a remote as well to control the cameras. Go into the presets, zoom in to read something. I can zoom in and actually, in this case, read even cable labels and what's written on them. I can zoom into ports, in this case, the network ports, and show status lights. And I can manually even drive or zoom out, zoom in, show the whole rack if I need to. Showing the processors as well, sorry about my hand, and drive down and even see the power supplies and power conditioning units, etc. We can also switch to computers with any of these type triggers like the mat, the pods, any kind of switch closure, and show things like standard PowerPoint. I can walk around the room obviously with a clicker and discuss things from a PowerPoint presentation. We can also use that same PC to show PDFs. And we're going to show you a couple of system feeds after this, but this is a screen that we'll see on the MCW here in a minute. When speaking of system feeds, I can actually switch to, say this is the RAPI. I can actually show you, if we have mouse control, I could drive and show you menu selections, which I'll do in a minute. And this is an example of some video feed that we taken from the system. And then I can switch back and forth to the computer as needed. And with PDFs and everything, whatever tools you can use to highlight, zoom in, that's a very nice feature, because I saw on the comments on the YouTube streaming yesterday about the fonts being small sometimes. You can zoom in, zoom out. That was very handy in the CD2 training. They were able to take a schematic drawing and zoom way into it and not lose clarity, and it was very clear. And then I'm going to show you as well the maintenance data position over here. And this is actually an example of controlling a system PC. This is an MCW position. And I can show you that I can select menu selections and how I would drive, in essence, the PC as needed. And then I can return back, for example, to the mat, and then come back and step on it, and the camera would then switch to me. I'm heading there. And we're back to me. And that was kind of an example. I can show you more manual driving of the cameras and triggers, but if you have any questions, I'd love to open it up for questions.
How you doing? This is very impressive. I'm Jim Merritt from Ops Support. Is there like a chat window that people can have dialogue that's not usable through voice?
For this, we don't have the access for a chat window, no.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Brian Edlin. Has the agency looked into augmented reality or virtual reality The technology we're using right here is great, but in today's world, augmented reality is the wave of the future.
I think my best reference, the short answer is yes. The short answer is sitting, I believe, at the table behind you. Chris Domini has, I thought, if I'm understanding the question, done some of that kind of effort.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Chris Domini, I think I'm good, got it close enough now. Yeah, we have done some research on augmented reality as well as virtual reality, and the beauty of this device as opposed to augmented reality requires a considerable amount of time to get any kind of content into that context. This, however, can transition very, very, very quickly. We can take almost existing content and get to that, to where we need to go. So it's much easier and much faster.
So Brian, Abby, hi. So something that we did not have as part of the program this week, because it was really hard to decide of all the myriad items that are going on in training, what do we talk about with this community? So we have a thing that we need to do a webinar with anyone that's interested about the Centers of Excellence. We have some augmented reality research that we're doing with the Centers of Excellence for Technical Training and Human Performance. And how many people know about that? Okay, so there's several people here that do. So I'm glad that about half of you have heard of it. But so this is awesome. And so it's not a binary yes or no, right? It's a yes and yes. And it's an and. And so we're working with, I'm not sure which university is our partner on that, because we've got about 26 research projects. Auburn University is working with us on augmented reality, and then industry partners join us. So if when the grant is completed, if we're happy with it, then we can convert to an indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract and buy directly from them those things that we did as a research. So we've got multiple prongs going on. So I would be happy to take an IOU, Celeste, that we do a webinar to talk with this community about our research opportunities and garner ideas for what other research that we want to put out there and crowdsource to other academic and industry organizations who do really amazing technical training. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt your show. You guys are doing great. This is so awesome.
My name is Robert Collins. I'm from AJI 2310. So my one question first off is, can you do this outside? Or does that always have to be in a lab environment?
No, the majority of the time we've been in the classroom or what Jason referred to as our impromptu studio. For example, when we did the CD2 training, they were located where Jason was. We had a podium set up. The instructors had places to set up their laptops, and we communicated with Denver for the 3.5 weeks. If that answers your question, we can be in a classroom. The slant when we created this was to make it mobile, so
Okay.
it's not fixed. I could roll this to another room, just like the equipment that's in Jason's area. I can roll to a different area.
Right, so you could go to any place on the academy to do this, correct?
Yes.
Indoors?
Yes.
And this also has the capability of recording, so somebody could go back and replay a portion that they might not have missed, or, they had that diamond effect, hardest
Yes.
rock known to man. So, and lastly, I have a question is, why are we waiting?
That'd be a question for Dan, or somebody else.
I mean, this actually this has a lot of potential, and it's like, I noticed when the air traffic did their presentation, I was able to see a presentation on my phone, and it was really slick. Can we also do that on a phone?
We have done several iterations where Dan has called in from his iPad using what's called Jabber. Now we're staying within the video teleconference environment here in this discussion, but he's called in from an iPad, from home, a hotel when he was traveling. Chris Domini again, called in from his Windows laptop, again from home, different locations.
Wow. Thank you. This was awesome.
So that really is cool because every technician has a laptop, right? Or they should, if they, but not everybody. Where they have some, but they have a computer station, right? And so think about this, folks, because so we were all together last week. The division managers from the academy, the group managers from technical training, myself, and we know that FY18 is going to be a turbulent year. Funding wise, and that rolls into positions. And so we said, and can I quote your resource quote, Dan? Do you mind? Are you cool with that? All right, awesome. So Dan goes, oh my gosh. So Abby, we lost 20 positions. That's 8 hours a day. That's 40,000 hours of training lost. I said, only if you think the way that you've thought. So let's think disruptively, because we have an amazing opportunity. And ladies and gentlemen, it's right here, because we can force multiply the talent of the instructors virtually. Leveraging money that we would use to send students from home to there, we could buy more of this equipment and create a force multiplier and create a whole community of learning together virtually, but still together, because people are like, we're having conversations with our team there that's 40 miles up the road. How cool is that? It's awesome. And who did this? Who did the Common Digitizer DOS? Who took that class, or who helped to arrange that? So Valerie Murray. So that was a well-received course, right? Giddy up, kids. This is awesome. We're in 2017. Let's take advantage of what we got and keep going, right?
This is Brian Elms from Engineering Services out of Atlanta. We have several offices across the United States, 9 different offices. How would, on the classroom side, where the students are, how many different locations can we be training students? You know, if I've got people in New York and Boston and Seattle, how would we go about handling those type of situations?
I'll kind of describe it as 3 different levels. One would just be point to point, like we did with the Denver. They had, I think, 5 students and somebody to monitor the class, and it would just be like more or less how we're calling you now. The way this equipment's configured, we can actually control 3 conference rooms, for example, or 3 locations, all within this cart, and never have to go through, the bridge. And that would mean if you had 3 conference rooms and you could put students in, say, 3 conference rooms, for example, and say on average 4 people per conference room, you could do 12 people kind of level. And then once you break that level, you're going to be using the actual video teleconference bridge. And the limit there is pretty high. The discussion usually goes, how many can you control readily or well, kind of discussion.
This is Dan Smith. I'd also like to add to that is it also kind of depends on the interactivity between the instructor and students as well. If it's more of a webinar, unidirectional type of presentation, certainly you can open up to a greater audience. But if you're looking for that intimate interactivity between instructor and student, you'd want to try and maintain the size as well.
Eddie Bunton with AJI 2310. How do we get the equipment feel? Say you got the displays there for the SOC. How can the technician get that equipment feel or be able to get to the equipment to actually train on that equipment?
I'll answer it, or Dan can, but for example, the CD2 training, we did the in-class, plus we actually took the camera equipment and went over to the radar where the CD2 lab was and took the camera and showed them what they were operating on, some of the procedures, and then they followed up after that, coming to the Aeronautical Center for however long it took to do the actual labs that you're speaking of.
So in our, to help answer that question, Eddie, in our actual pilot, if you will, that we used, we did the theory component of the training via this equipment, and then we brought them in a week later for a
For the lab
7-day
portion.
resident lab. So in essence, we took a 4-week course and we converted it to a 7-day resident course.
Okay, good, good. This is a game changer. Okay.
The equipment on the other side, Paul?
I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
The equipment for Denver, what was the equipment on the other side? The
Just-
equipment
well, I
located
hate
at Denver.
to use the word standard VTC, but the standard FAA VTC, they had a conference room that they had available at the facility. They gave us the number, we called it every day. So they already had the equipment because it already existed in a conference room.
So Dan, excuse me, Dan, can I mention this now? One of the things, because in case some of you are already thinking, you know, well, we don't have conference rooms that are available. How many of you are familiar with the ATN, Aviation Training Network? We are looking to repurpose that or slightly modify it to give you this capability in a room that already exists in the facility. Because I already know when you start going and asking for space out there, it's just like you've said a bad word to someone. And so anyway, you know, so when we were talking, Dan and I were talking, and I told Dan, I said, what could this look like if you take the existing space that you already have out there and equip it with, because I think right now you have tandems out there for your, instead of a VTC. And so you would need the polycoms and things. And so that's what we're looking to do. Again, this is kind of in collaboration with Chris Domini's group and Dan that has the requirements to give you that capability.
Good morning, this is Joshua Zumstick from Renton, Washington. Just a quick question. Do you envision incorporating Blackboard and the VTC together to help stimulate kind of a group dialogue for comments, taking quizzes, etc.? Or do you envision it just being strictly VTC?
As far as my knowledge, it's independent. It's usually spoken of independent of Blackboard. Not that it can't incorporate it, possibly, but I've never heard the two combined yet.
This is Dan Smith again. Absolutely. In terms of leveraging this technology in cooperation with Blackboard, it is very feasible to link the two together so that we could take advantage of some of the applications that Blackboard presents that strict VTC does not, as far as linking up to the learning management system, ELMS, for credit, for testing, for skill checks, et cetera. So there's a lot of capability there.
Somebody in the field would like to know what VTC is. So could you explain that just to level set?
VTC is again, this is Dan Smith. VTC is an acronym for video teleconferencing. It is a full duplex, two-way video, two-way audio.
And Ted, this is Louis Ramirez. Ted, what Dan was talking about, as we go to the ELMS cloud environment in the agency, it's not a discrete thing anymore. You know, you could have a week-long classroom event, course event, that a piece of it is, hey, I'm taking a self-paced module on ELMS. A piece of it is, I'm going to Blackboard for something. A piece of it is, click here, you're going to go to Adobe Connect. So it's not one or the other anymore.
And just a reminder, all of those tools are, Blackboard and ELMS is already integrated. If you want to do an Adobe Connect session, it integrates with the LMS. And so We are really there. We still have little things still some things that we're working out there at the academy, and actually getting links and things to the classrooms, to this technology, what Paul is talking about. So technology is not the problem. It's getting everybody in alignment to say, hey, this needs to be done. So for this second part of our presentation, Valerie's going to kind of talk about the future culture, and that's simply because there's a shift that has to be made, and we're going to need you guys to help us make the shift.
Thank you, Bert. Exactly. There's a huge shift. It's basically a paradigm shift in the way that we see and do training right now. Basically, the academy was designed and put in place so that technicians or air traffic controllers or inspectors could get away from the operations and focus on learning that skill or learning that technique. That's all they had to worry about. They didn't have to worry about the rigors of home, the office, what was going on. When we start moving this interactive training out to the field, into your field facilities, the idea of this discussion here is so that we can start brainstorming some of the challenges we're going to face. Now, I've had the fortune of being a SSC manager in the GNAS as well as in the center environment, and both of those are unique places to try and accomplish training. They each have their own set of challenges. Some of the things I like you to think about is, okay, if we have the space and we have the technology, so we have a conference room or a training room that's set aside, and we have dedicated lines, dedicated time. You have individuals that are working schedules, whether it be rotating schedules, whether it be AWS. You have maybe some standing agreements with your labor partners that you might need to talk about. Flexibility to accommodate this training. You have additionally, someone being in training, you might want to set certain training days. Now, if we're doing just a single point-to-point, as Paul is doing here, it may be a little bit easier. Everybody's in one location. But when you start multiplying that, and that's where our advantages are, that's what Abby keeps bringing in, that's where the advantage is by multiplying our efforts. When you start multiplying that, there's got to be more coordination, more scheduling, making sure that what works for Oklahoma City works for DC and works for Atlanta, which may be on different time zones and things of that nature. You also have the consideration that you're in an operational environment. Technicians want to get the job done. When they hear that page comes across and that the radar is out, or air traffic needs somebody to come look at this scope, there has to be an expectation that's communicated to the technician on how they're going to respond, or if they're not going to respond, and how the manager is going to deal with that. It's a complete shift because we're no longer isolating you just to do it. And then if there are compromises that need to be made, how do we handle that when a person has missed something critical, or they don't complete the training, or don't successfully manage to get through a portion of it? So all these things, and that's what this conversation is about. We want some of those ideas so we can start working on our end to try and help prepare you, because as Barbara said, all you need is the requirement, the opportunity, and obviously the technology. And we can work all those things, but when we put it out there, we want to get all the benefit. We want that return on investment. And in order to do that, we have to get the buy-in from everybody that they're committed to doing this. And we may not, like Dan, I think the CD2 class, you're able to run in a straight string the complete course. Well, we may not be able to do that with every course. We may have to break it down into segments. Like someone mentioned before, you may have some interactive video training with the instructors, and then you may take a break and do some self-pace in that portion, and then they come back in another week or so and do more interactive with the instructor. Whatever that looks like. We're not trying to tell you how it's going to be. What we're asking is for your input to help us form what it needs to be. So that that one size. That's right. Everybody's unique, and we may not be able to do concurrent training with a large TRACON and a center at the same time. We may have to separate the types of facilities, and that's the conversation I'd like to have. So, you have anything to add? If not, we'd like to open up. So it looks like we have a question in the back.
Great. So have you already developed job aids on how to use this technology? And if not, when will you? And if so, when will we get them?
Okay. I want to say that most of the technology, with the exception of what Paul, I don't know if you've generated anything unique to the Academy, but most of the things that we've talked about, Adobe Connect, Blackboard, things of that nature, we do have some job aids available for it. They may not be fully developed, but we do have training that's available that we have. AMA 23 conducts Blackboard development as well as instructing Blackboard training. So yes, we do. We have that available. This is kind of a hybrid, for lack of a better word, of using some different technologies to accomplish this. Paul, you want to answer that?
If you're asking for training aids, is that what the question was?
Job aids.
Job aids. On operation of it, no. As far as the video teleconferences at the remote locations, so far they've only been in conference rooms where you would answer the call and then the camera would stay where it was, and basically the audio, the microphone would already be active in the room. And then when they wanted to ask questions on this end, we have, well, for example, Jason, and you can't see another gentleman in the room, but several of us know how to do this end of it at this point.
In terms of overall training, I think from that perspective, that particular question, how ultimately we decide that we're going to use it, from there, developing those training aids would then come from a user perspective as well as from a developer perspective. A lot of that still needs to be flushed out, but that is a very good question that we need to take an IOU to get back to the person who asked that question.
Thanks, Dan. We have a question in the back.
Hi, Krista Jepson from Anchorage District. I just have a question revolving around the rules of perhaps a no-show for a portion of the class. Say, Bob Smith gets the flu and he's out for 3 days and he misses these classes. Maybe this was answered before and I don't know if it was. Is it being recorded so he can go back and rewatch that, or is he kicked out of the class till next go around? How does that work?
And those rules have yet to be developed. I mean, that's things we're going to have to address in the training order. But additionally, it is recorded. So we could put that in there with some discussion with the field, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and setting those expectations up front. Then you can work with those and work with your employees to try and address it.
Thank you.
Javon Henry, AJW 134 Tech Ops Headquarters. So my question is about access to the content. Even the facilities that have VTC are pretty much going to be limited to centers, maybe some TRACONs, and access to that equipment is very limited. Some of these courses may need to run for weeks, and I just do not see a scenario where that's really going to be a viable option at most facilities. Is there going to be maybe a pilot group or a group that can set up some availability and run through this and it be recorded and played back through ELMS or something like that? I think for us to really transition to it, the accessibility issue is probably going to be one of the bigger things to overcome.
Exactly, and that's a challenge, but you have to realize that this is one more tool in a toolbox, and we're trying to find ways to better, more efficiently and effectively deliver the training. So as you were speaking before, not every single system or every single course we teach will fit this model, but we can take advantage of it in some things, which will open up our bandwidth to do other things, and that's what we're trying to do. We have to look at, this is just one component. There's like the CD2 class, I think it was 2-3 weeks.
The original class length was 4 weeks of resident, and we conducted the VTC session over 19 days.
Okay, 19 days. Well, what's to say that if they, with a little bit more evolution, they may have been able to take a portion of that and put it into some type of asynchronous training, whether it was some reading or whether it was ELMS or video, whatever, that asynchronous training. So then this portion of it may have been 5 days of the training, and then they'll come out to the lab for 7 days. Whatever works and how it works for that particular course and the particular content. We have a lot of tools available to us at the Academy where we can run different curriculum through media analysis tools and determine what's the appropriate or optional medias to deliver this type of training and get the objectives that we're looking for covered. You have anything to add, Barb?
The other piece of that is that keep in mind that there is a lot of technology that we don't even use right now that needs to be repurposed. And if you just put a slight spin on that, it'll give you what you really need. When we first deployed, and I wasn't here when they deployed the Aviation Training Network, but one of the reasons why, Valdry and myself and the team, we began to really look at that is that back in the heyday, they used the satellite component quite a bit. But over years, I'm looking at this decline. So why would you keep technology that's not being used? That doesn't how are we getting any return on investment for that? So, the team has put together, and working with the individuals who have the requirement and working with the NAS Technical Services Group and things, we're trying to, actually look to see how could we repurpose this to give the functionality that or the capability that they need in the field facilities. When we first deployed the ATN, we have 129 downlinks, but we didn't put them out there overnight. It was a phased approach. And so when you're putting this technology out there, I look at it as putting a phased approach. Throwing a bunch of technology out there with no concept and no plan is a recipe for disaster. And so I would hope that there's going to be some planning, business processes, as Valdry mentioned, that have to be in place for us to be successful.
Hi, Rebecca Malden from AGI. I was wondering, how is research, like current research and using distant learning type of technologies, as well as best practices from others, how is that being incorporated to how potentially this could be further incorporated in the FAA?
Okay, I can speak to some of the research that the Academy's done as far as AMA 23. We're in the process right now of constructing 4 virtual training studios within the Academy, and they'll be utilized by all the different stakeholders, not just tech ops, air traffic, anyone in the Academy that would like to conduct training. In our pursuit of those new studios, we actually went out to industry. We actually went out here to the NCED, a couple other government entities, as well as private and educational institutions to find those best practices, find what's working for them, what's not working, what lessons were learned so we don't have to learn them all over again. So we are taking the opportunity. Some of the COE efforts or whatever give us some of that information and insight as well.
Hey, this is Mike Rohrth, Engineering Services from Seattle. Given the large cost savings from this transform type of courses, it's like a couple students not traveling that much would easily pay for another VTC set. And I don't think that's what VTC was originally intended for, made for, is more actual teleconferencing between meetings. They put them in the ROs and large facilities. So given that you're expanding the use of it and there's a large cost savings, are you guys coordinating with IT or whatever finance departments would need to fund that to say, look at the large savings here? So we can buy more VTC equipments and put them in every tower and TRACON and really just get them out there?
Yeah.
There are some, I'm going to go back to this legacy technology that you've had out there for years. The way we pay for the legacy technology today is through F&E. To be exact, we get anywhere from 1.0 to $1.5 million. Tell me how much you can buy with that instead of piecing and continue to patch on the ATN of which you don't even use. The other piece of that is one of the reasons why this has to be a joint effort, IT, training, the Academy, AJI. It has to be a joint effort, and that's simply because there's some processes that have to change. Just because you have a VTC in there that you actually use for meetings, well, why come it can't be used for training? How many computers do you have at home that you just do one thing with it? Most people don't. I do banking. I mean, and we're moving into a generation that does everything from their phone. So, we have to learn to be versatile and, and I know the space thing, God help us, we get into that space thing, this is mine. And I'm like, whatever. Share it with everybody else because we have a need. We're trying to save the agency money here. We got 10 people that don't need to come to the Academy because we're going to use your VTC that you put your name on it somewhere to do training with. So anyway, those are some things, so I think, I don't know that we necessarily, yes, you do need to throw some additional funding there, but also there's funding that's already dedicated places that we need to repurpose.
And just to add a couple things to what Barbara was just saying, is that AIT, they have a mission as well, and their mission is primarily to make sure that the operations keep going, whatever that operation is, whether it's HR, business, finance, the NAS. So that's what they're working on. So one of the challenges that we face is that training, in order for training to be effective, it can't be interrupted. It can't have the type of bandwidth problems that we experience normally when we're going out. It can't be blocked when you go to watch a video or do something. So we're trying to be creative, and Barbara's been leading this effort to be creative with the AVT network to try and repurpose and redesign so that we can essentially stand up a separate training network where, although it may not be at every single facility, it'll be at enough facilities that our customers can get to those points and utilize that network. And by doing that, we control, what comes in and what goes out, and it gives us a lot more flexibility and make sure that our training is doing what we want it to do and be effective and efficient. So, next question.
Good morning, John Wozniak from the PMO. I love the fiscal observancy that you guys are following through and trying to save a couple nickels. The big thing is, who is the ultimate gatekeeper on the decision to take something from ILT, which maybe worked for 100 million years, and then move it to a different kind of platform with a delivery system? This begs back to the media study issues that we go through at the beginning of every training life cycle. So who is that person?
Yes, AJI owns it.
AJI.
Abby is the...
Chuck. Hey, Chuck.
Charles Stimley, AJI. Right. Our requirements leads are looking at all new aspects of training. There's nothing off the table anymore. We're considering any new ways to do or to knowledge and skill transfer to the right person at the right time with the right information. So everything's on the table.
And Chuck, I would like to add to that question, in the case of the CD2 pilot that we did, it was still instructor-led training. We used this equipment to facilitate the communication between instructor and student, but the course itself was taught exactly as if the student was at the academy.
So, question. So Rebecca Malden again, AJI. So you talk about VTC, and that seems to be there's some concerns or some limiting factors around that. The space and the technology. Why can't you do some other things like webcams, things like that? That may be more easily deployable, and any site could do that. Is that a possibility?
Well, one more. Just a characteristic of training is that you want to control the environment. Have you ever went to go to watch a football game or stream something on TV and you don't have the driver or this applet or something else that's plugged in? So as much as possible, we would like to control or know what the person on the other side is experiencing. We'd like to control that experience as much as possible, what's practical. Yes, we're exploring making things compatible with mobile devices and things of that nature, but that's an evolution right now. There's work to be done just to transition to, even though it may be instructor-led training, there was a lot of work that was done on the front end by 400 to figure out what parts of the lab needed to be accessible, where the cameras could be positioned so that they could get this over when the PowerPoints came in. There's things that have to be modified in the training program just to get that course. Even though it's still instructor-led and it's just like being taught in the classroom, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Same thing. So we're evolving, and each course, like I said, every course won't fit this mold. Some courses will use a lot of it, some will use a little of it, but the idea, this is one more tool in the toolbox, and as long as we keep expanding the use of those tools, we'll start getting more and more return on our investment.
Good morning, sir. It's John again.
Woz.
That's true, too. That works. There's other nicknames, and Chuck knows most of them. control over training. I have to totally disagree with that. And you have a lot of passion about that, and you really want to control it. We do a lot of work with industry, training 737 flight decks with Southwest, with Datacom, right? That didn't work that way. The training was developed and delivered to their pads, and then they were basically turned loose. So they have a model for targeting that group, and there's virtually no control other than the completion of it. So they put it out there. It's up to them to take it. So interactive is good, right? And electronic is, even better for broader distribution. So the control piece should be measured. Sometimes you can over-control something. Just a thought.
And I want to clarify that the control was on this particular technology, because I think most people here would agree that the modern learner, or the majority of people nowadays, how many people, when they need to learn how to do something, they'll just pick up that phone and Google it or YouTube it. That's what our technical workforce is used to. But the problem is most of the YouTube videos are, somebody, I'm going to do this, I'm going to film myself while I do it, I'll talk through it, whatever. Well, if we're considering this training something that's going to give somebody a particular skill or knowledge at the end of that training, it's going to have to be by the book. It's going to have to make sure it includes all the PPE and the warnings. And we can't just go behind somebody with a webcam and film it. So I'm not knocking it, but we have to think about what the objective of the course is, and then there's that conversion process. So I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that it's more to it to make sure that we get the results that we're expecting as we do this. And we look like we have another question from the field.
Has there been any thought about using this technology to provide a just-in-time training solution, i.e. how to install a mod or troubleshoot a tricky problem?
Okay, I know for a fact this similar technology has been used for just-in-time workshops such as generational training and things with Southern California TRACON. We have not moved it into the technical tech ops arena, but it's available, and I'm sure if the right dialogue was had with 400 and they had the bandwidth and the capacity to deal with it, they would try and support AJW or whatever other entity was looking for that.
Hey, Val, let me add one more thing about the the control part. Luis Ramirez. Just the other day, I responded to we're partnering with SAIC right now on AT basics, and there's questions about and that's taken into web-based design. And that's air traffic course, and as well, this is just for iPads. No, it's not. If we can design, take into account the end user community. Okay, maybe our workforce only has iPad, but if we've got folks that they may want to do it from an Android tablet, again, keeping it in mind, the workplace, the bargaining constraint, those parameters. But when we're designing, we need to be thinking about if it is not an impact, right? And I can build something that doesn't matter whether it's an iPad, doesn't matter whether it's a tablet, doesn't matter whether it's a home webcam that someone can access it from Adobe from their home PC. Those considerations are all things in our design process that we need to be, we are looking at. And then the same thing working with AJW from the tech manual side, what are those, when you got a flat tire on the road, or you're trying to fix a washer, what's the first thing you do? We've said it before. You Google it. You look for that YouTube video. We need to be providing that same kind of performance support, and that's just another form of getting the job done. It's not necessarily always a training. It's what do they need to get the job done.
This is Dan Smith from Tech Ops Training again. I'd like to add to that in terms of leveraging the LCMS as well that we discussed yesterday, in terms of having generic diagnostic training modules and being able to leverage this technology and or other technologies to provide that just-in-time training in whatever format is best suited for that particular curriculum.
C. Haley, Cycle Technical Training. Hi, V.
Hi, C.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I like your name.
I like your initial.
Okay. We're good.
But I'm going by the new guy now.
Okay. Just to add to what you were saying and the way I took your discussion about control is we want to make sure that the student's experience is seamless and that there's no difficulty. You start buffering and you see all these things going on and we're not accounting for those in the control side, then we're going to have failure with our students. So I appreciated what you said about the control piece to that extent. Yes, I understand. And listen, you know, I've always said from butcher paper all the way up to the most high level of augmented, virtual, whatever you want to call it, all of those things are in our basket to choose as we look to design content. What's conducive? We need to go there.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have one over here.
I just like the idea of using what we have. Using what we already have is here. We have access to that here. We don't have to buy it. It's here. It's already here. And that's the thing that I like about it. That I just wanted to say that. Control, we want to control it. We want control. We want to control that environment for the student, and we want to make sure that the student can learn in that environment that we put them in. But being able to use the resources that we have already, that's a key element. That's a key thing.
Actually getting what we paid for. What a unique idea. In the back, we have a...
say a field site or facility identifies a need for a new training, and they have the technology to support Academy TV, and they have, what is it, VPN?
VTC.
VTC, good word. So what's to stop them from requesting a new course that uses this technology?
Okay. Well, to establish the requirement for the course is a little bit more than just that need. So it'd have to be a business case or some type of business requirement that was vetted through AJI that would come down, and then the academy or contract vehicle or some other entity would actually design the course. And in the process of designing that course, they're going to run it through the media analysis and see if this is going to fit, because you have to actually identify what you're trying to teach and and what level you're trying to teach. There's more to it than just, okay, we're going to teach this instructor-led. A lot of people tend to believe that, but that's most people that are in the instructional design and things of that nature know that some things can be taught via this modality, other things need other modalities, or some modalities don't work as well. So anyway, that process starts with AJI, you identifying the requirement, and then they'll determine how that tasking is going to take place and the priority of that tasking. And then if it gets vetted and comes down here, it'll be worked.
Hi, this is Pat McQueen, Technical Training. Is this maybe toward the academy a little bit more? Has anyone thought about first course conduct or ops tryout, like a less formal training activity? You know, that takes a lot of time and resources. Has anyone considered using it? You know, that wouldn't be a course credit situation, but we could accomplish some of this virtual, training or at least course conduct. Has anyone considered that?
Hey, let me take that one, and Dan and Mac jump in. Luis Ramirez, we are looking at that because not everything needs to go through the full Monty, right? If we're doing just in time training on stuff, if we're doing the way we do, and on the air traffic side, and when we're dealing with the PMO, we were just having this conversation earlier this week and last week. So the answer is, yeah, we have to be, and we've got some COE efforts also. We have to be nimble. Why do we do OTOs? Why do we do first course conducts? If it's a recurrent training, do I need both? If it's web-based, do I need both? So where can we streamline things without compromising the end goal? And if it's certification training, yeah, we got to do it, right? But if it's just in time, what's the value added, right, of doing all those steps?
Deanna Daniels from Cleveland. I just wanted to say that I think that this is a great idea, and I think that a good way that we might be able to roll this out is possible updates on equipment with briefings that would get it out to the field
for very short periods of time rather than having to do an entire course, and possible refresh for the technicians when they've already been to training and the training has been pushed back. We already know where the waterfalls are and how they're being pushed back, and that might be another option to get it out there for short-term, quick spurts so that the people out there start to see it, start to use it, and understand the value of this.
Great comment. Celeste, did you capture that? I saw some other hands.
So there was a follow-up question, and it may have already been answered in some of the discussion, but the process that you spoke about earlier, we just can't, say go and have training. There needs to be a process involved in it. How long does that process take? What can they expect?
I think it depends on what the requirement is, but Valerie, I think she can speak a little bit more to it.
Hello, my name is Valerie Cook. So the process is that the training request is vetted through AJI, and once it comes to AJI, we have a training request proposal. We have a process. Once the process is that requirement is identified, then we collaborate with our partners in AMA, the Academy, to define. Well, I'm sorry. Let me back up. We go through the process of vetting it through our curriculum. We have C. Haley, we work along with C. Haley with the curriculum management. And then also we're working collaboratively with the Academy at the same time. So from that, as a result of that, this gets louder. Okay, we go from, after we go through the processes, then we also, we're keeping in touch. We work along with our past representative, and we have our SMEs. We have a first course a course walkthrough, a first course conduct. So it depends on what the development of it depends on the equipment. It depends on also the IOC date that has been identified, and then we work collaboratively with the PMO to determine what those steps. We follow our validation process, so it's really clear. We're talking about safety of the NAS. We're not just talking about in certification in some instances. We're not just talking about getting out courses just out of the door just as fast as we can. We want to streamline our processes, but we want to do it with the safety of the NAS at the helm. And so if there are any questions that follow suit, I know that there are individual nuances and individual concerns. Feel free to vet them through. I'm always available. We have our National Training Telcon. We have our esteemed requirements leads who are always available. And we work together. We work together with the Academy. We don't do any training development in a vacuum. So I hope that answers the the online streamer. I think I'm getting some more feedback.
Yeah, so the caller had a follow-up.
Okay.
If the facility has identified this as a training need and has the technology, why should they have to go through all of those wickets to get the training that they need? I mean, isn't it a customer service driven organization?
I think Valerie could give get Valerie's information to her, and they could email you, and then you could get into the specifics of that, because without specifics, it's kind of hard to speak to.
It is. Thank you.
Robert Collins, AJI. So one of the things, do you have any courses in the pipeline right now to go forward?
Dan? No. I'm shaking his head, no.
Okay. So one of the things that we were looking at in Elizabeth's group and Charles was Victor Marvel's. He does the fund docs. And, what do they call that now? NCCP or what? CMPT. That's a course that they're already teaching, and it's not technical, but it's something that needs to be spread out for a wide audience for the technicians. And I know Elizabeth and we've discussed this, that would be one of the ones that we'd like to really do to get this to run and, validate it for a proof of concept. In other words, if it can be done and people can see it on a phone, it's not technical, but it's stuff that the technicians have to do, because part of it was introduction to NAS, explaining to them what a VOR was, a DME, rail, you name it, it was covered. And so I would just say as a suggestion, that might be one that we really would like to do.
And that may work perfectly in this platform, but I want to challenge you. You know, we always, like instructor-led training, you know, the reason why why all of our courses are instructor-led training is because we always push instructor-led training. That's why. So if this becomes the new thing, we'll always push that. I want to just ask you, think a little bit about video vignettes. For that same information, it still could be available online. I'm just saying, just start thinking. We have to kind of think outside the box a little bit now, especially when resources are getting a little bit tighter. It may not cover the entire course, but if most of that course could be covered in little video vignettes that they can refresh themselves on anytime they wanted to, and then they only have to be with that instructor an hour or half an hour, maybe that works great. Just giving some food for thought.
Yeah, Brian Elms from Engineering Services. So if engineering services have specific tasks that we do that would lend itself to creating these video vignettes, you know, how would we go about getting those kind of things built or done? You know, like just building an Ethernet cable. You know, how would we go ahead? You know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do something like that.
All I need is some resources, funding.
Okay. Tell me when to give it to you.
Starts with AJI,
Okay.
But I just need the
Then
funding.
we need to talk to Abby.
And I believe it's been mentioned, but AMA 20 has abundance of technology. We have 2 studios that are HD quality studios, broadcast studio. We have mobile cameras, as Kevin's in the back right now. We have a lot of capabilities that we just need to know what the requirements are and make sure we have the resources to accomplish it. Any other questions, comments? And one more, any other challenges to seeing the culture shift in the field? That's one of the reasons for this, because we know that when we push training into your organization right now, it's like, oh, I want the training, I want the training, I want the training. And when the only person that can fix the radar is sitting in training and you're getting a blast over the horn, what's the process we're dealing with? We need to make sure all that's covered before we get to that situation, not after the situation.
William Butler, past rep to AGI2, normally based out of DFW. I got a question and a comment, and I'll go with the question first. As we embrace these new technologies, some of this is going to have to be incorporated into BIT because of the different ways that we, instruct, whether it be VTC, interactive Blackboard. Have we started having those discussions to incorporate that into BIT to be ahead of the curve instead of now we have this course ready to develop it this way, but we don't have instructors trained to teach it that way? That's the question. And then I have a comment that it kind of goes to what Javon was saying about the accessibility of these facilities. I'd like to hope that I represent the labor organization right now, but between labor, because it's a different, we've got different generations of learners that all like to learn differently. So we all need to be open-minded in that as we go to this new technology, that we as the students are flexible to the different learning environments. And when it comes to accessibility to the spaces at a center or wherever, that hopefully our management partners, the front line, we got SoupCom here, that they want to get their technicians trained. So there's going to be a little bit of give and take on both that, hey, if we want to get them trained, we might have to give up that space for a period of time. And we've got SoupCom here that probably could share that message on that side. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. On your question, I'm going to defer to John Espinoza. He's one of our ISDs that formerly taught BIT and was in on the current rewrite or the recent rewrite.
Sure. So John Espinoza, FAA Academy. Great point. And we're right there with you. We just recently went through a revision with our basic instructor training course. So originally it was a 13-day format. We went out and did some extensive analysis on not only other government agencies, but private industry. How are they training their instructors? Okay. And we came up with an instructor curriculum refresh plan. So it's a 2-tiered system. The foundational knowledge of an instructor, they need to be able, 1, to stand up and communicate, effectively engage the audience, use a lesson plan of some sort. We have that currently in the course. What Tier 2 will do is that professional development piece. That's where we're going to add on these extra elements because you still need that foundational knowledge. It's about, your subject matter experts, but now you got to get up and impart knowledge on the students. And whether that's through VTC, whether that's through Adobe Connect, whether we're using Blackboard. We currently have a Blackboard Basics course that we do that with, but you're right on the money. So we're doing that through AMA 23, the Training and Evaluations branch. Just-in-time training, you mentioned generational training. We provided that. That was something that was identified as a need over in SoCal TRACOM, and we developed a course. So that's something that, you know, we're constantly thinking of. And it goes back to, I think, a question was asked, what other research are you doing in these technologies? The instructors out of AMA 23, they go through, you know, many certifications. So through the Association of Talent Development, they're certified facilitators, certified developers, you know, Blackboard certified instructors. We hold a lot of different certifications, so we are always looking forward, not just in the FAA, but what are other agencies doing in the realm of, you know, delivering training via these technologies. So, did that answer?
As to your comment, you know, one thing on those conversations you're having with management, you know, this is a common interest. We want the safety of the NAS, and for PASS, they want their employees trained so that they can keep the NAS safe, and management wants the employees trained as well. That's a common interest. So that should be where you start from when you have those conversations. And I think the obstacles as far as challenges with space and time and things of that nature, I think you'll overcome that pretty easily. Just start with that common interest.
Is there a list of various training delivery options, equipment, modalities, etc., and how can we get our hands on it?
An actual printed list, no, but we do have some. We can prepare one, and we can get it on the AMA 20 website or KSN site. We can do that. We'll do that. Celeste, if you'll give us an IOU for that, we will take care of it. Anyone else? In the middle?
Phil Lozano, Naseo. I've seen second level engineering use a lot of these different tools. Has there been outreach to second level? They do job aids, and the job aids and some of the user's guide, they've actually put on video, and they utilize some of the tools that you guys are presenting, or, you know, I don't know if they're represented in this audience very well, but they do a lot of these things that don't necessarily need course numbers, but the technicians do need that. I mean, it's kind of like that just-in-time training. So any interaction there, and, you know, reaching out to our tech center personnel.
I can't speak specifically to second level, but I do know in some of our efforts to try and figure out what's the best way to generate a video library or video repository. We've had conversations with like the Tech Center and other entities that are already doing this. The problem is trying to find out what's working, what's not, and make sure we're not reinventing the wheel. So I know, Chris, you may want to speak on it. I know you had some conversation with the Tech Center for the video repository. You may not. And
Actually, this is Charles Timley with AJI. We have Amy Newman with Technical Operations, and Elizabeth Doucette are working in collaboration with AMA to develop a video library so that it's available across the FAA. So that is in the works.
Thanks, Chuck. Anyone else?
So Barbara, V, Paul, Dan, Chris, the whole crew, thank you so much. Barbara and I had a wonderful visit in her office. I said, do you have a minute, and pulled her out of a telecon. So I think that she owes me one for that. But anyway, last week, and we were talking about all of the tools that are sitting in waiting. And so folks, we've got the tool, but we've got the shell available. Now let's fill it with the content, because we're in the 21st century. Let's think 21st century. They've built the shell of the house. Now let's furnish it with the beautiful things that we need to make a welcome environment for ourselves and for the people that we serve. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank all of you. This is really great and inspiring.
Thank you. Wow, was that impressive or what? Makes you want to go back to training, doesn't it?
Not really? All right, it is about lunchtime. Abby, do you want to say anything else before lunch, or? Don't forget the forms. Don't forget your index cards about, yes, our 3 questions. What is working, what's not working, and what we have missed for this morning's session only. Okay, anything else? We will see you at 1 o'clock. Enjoy your lunch.